delve into a world where werewolves rule and hope flickers in the shadows of Under the Moon's embrace. Join Amara on a quest for harmony in a realm divided, where the line between friend and foe blurs in Under the Moon's embrace. Uncover the secrets of a century-old war and the whispers of a revolution in Under the Moon's embrace. Prologue. It has been years since the humans have been dethroned. It has been years since the werewolves have taken over. 100 years after the war, everything seems peaceful. No, everything seems too peaceful. The humans haven't revolted in 30 years. It is impossible to think that none of them desire freedom. Is it the calm before the storm? Amara has witnessed this werewolf-ruled world for all the 19 years that she has lived. Abandoned when she was just an infant, she was adopted by a werewolf couple who treated her nothing less than a family. She doesn't despise the werewolves, she just wishes that both the species could live together, peacefully. Elias 𝐊𝐢𝐬, one of the most ancient werewolves, is also one of the werewolves who had led the werewolves during war. Every year, in the month of December, he goes to different towns along with his accomplices in search of his mate. Just like every other years, this year also seems to have been in vain. The city of Oricos seems to be their last stop. They arrive just in time for the Christmas celebrations. Will his luck change here? Will he be able to find the one piece that he has been looking for years? Let's find out. Chapter 1. Amara's POV. I don't want to get up. I've been lying down for 10 minutes just contemplating what I'm doing with my life and why I can't sleep for just 1 more hour if not 2. I have heard my mom bang at the door 10 times in order to wake me up, but I just can't seem to let go of my precious bed. How will I travel if I don't earn money? With that thought, I wake up and force my body to go take a shower and do all the necessities. It's around 8 a.m. when I go downstairs to the kitchen to help my mother with the breakfast. I prepare the scrambled eggs while she prepares fresh juice for all of us. She is humming her favorite song with her hair tied at the back, looking as beautiful as she always looks. Dad seems to agree with me as he keeps peeking at her again and again as he reads the newspaper. Dad comes to help us lay down the breakfast on the table and we all sit down and dig into our meals. The Christmas celebration is going to be held at the town hall this year, my dad said. Yeah, I heard someone important is coming this year, my mom replied. By when will you be back from work, Bunny, my dad asked, using his favorite nickname for me. Since it's the holiday season, the bakery will have more orders, so I guess I'll be a little late. You both can go without me. I'll head straight over there after work, I replied. Will there be someone to accompany you? The streets can be dangerous at night, honey, you know that, inquired my mom. Don't worry, Mom. I'll ask Ella to come with me, and even if someone tries to attack me, I'll just have to use Dad's training on him. Bunny, don't say things like that. You'll make Papa Bear grow protective, my dad replied. My alarm rings as Dad finishes his sentence to notify me that if I don't leave my house this second, I'll be late for work. I put my breakfast inside my mouth all at once and hug my mom and dad as I try not to choke and die. As I arrive at the bakery, I can already see a line of customers. Not trying to brag or anything, but we are the best bakery of the town, and the only one. I walk in and greet the manager. Tying my apron, I look around for Ella, but she doesn't seem to be anywhere. Isn't Ella here yet, Tim? I asked the manager. She called in sick today. What a great day to be sick, isn't it? He replies. I sigh as I realize that I'll have to go to the celebration alone, which won't really be appreciated by my parents. Most of the werewolves have learned to live with us humans, but every species has its pests, and it seems as if the werewolf pests usually come out at night to prey on humans. My parents are werewolves themselves. Well, I guess you can tell that I'm adopted. I had been abandoned by my real parents when Dad and Mom took me in. They both couldn't have children of their own, but they have treated me very preciously, and I'm really grateful for it. It's around 8 p.m. when the last customer leaves and Tim announces that the workers can retire. I ask the other workers if they can accompany me to the celebration, but most of them have to go back home and get ready along with their dates. I put my coat over me as I come out of the bakery. I can feel the cold wind gushing over my face as the full moon lightens the whole area. I walk in the moonlight as I notice that I'm just a few minutes away from the town hall. As I am lost into my deep thoughts of philosophy, I hear something creak from behind me. My head turns as fast as lightning as I look back to see the source of the sound. No one. I sigh in relief as I turn back only to see a creepy guy standing before me. "You really shouldn't be walking alone at night, little human," he says in a voice as disgusting as his face. "It's none of your business, sir," I reply. "If it isn't, I'll make it so. It has been so long since I've tasted human flesh. Did you know that little lady?" he asks. I'm sorry, I'm kind of running late for the celebration. I'll listen to your story later." "If you're alive to hear it," he replies as he grabs my hand, pulling me towards him. As I am pulled towards him, I notice 4 men in a distance, just watching the situation. I guess they won't be of any help, I think to myself. As I'm pulled, I pull my hand backwards to make his stance unstable as I lift my feet to kick him where the sun doesn't shine. He cries in pain as he moves backward with his hands over his baby maker. "You shouldn't have done that. I was going to kill you without much pain, but I'll make sure it is slow and painful," he replies as he shivers with anger. I step back as his eyes turn black, allowing me to know that I've managed to rage both him and his wolf. I look back at the 4 men. One of them comes a little forward as he notices the sudden change in situation. I guess they're humans as well. They can't do much to save me. The town hall isn't too far away, so maybe if I scream... The creepy man turned into his werewolf and leapt towards Chapter 2. Amara's POV. What if I go a little towards my left? I watched the wolf leap towards me, a little too fast for me to come up with a better plan. I closed my eyes as I waited for the impact but heard a whine instead. I opened my eyes to see the wolf hanging in the midway in the air. Confused, I tilted my head to look behind him and saw one of the men holding the wolf by his neck using only his hands. The other 3 were standing behind him, not very close but not too far away either. Now this isn't fair, is it? Since she is a human, you should be fighting with her in your human form as well. "You dirty little swine," said the man as he grabbed the wolf's paws with his other hand, crushing them slowly. The wolf whined loudly, letting us know how excruciating the pain was. "Come on, Elias. Let us play with him as well," said one of the men from behind. The man, whose name apparently is Elias, threw the wolf in their direction without any effort. I tried to look behind his body frame to see what was happening to the wolf, but Elias came in front of me. "Do you take forever to thank?" he said. I'm sorry, Thank you," I replied as I lifted my head up, letting our eyes meet. Another whine made me cringe. "You're not going to kill him, right?" I asked him. "Well, you're the victim here. You can decide his fate. Don't kill him, but don't let him hunt for humans again." "Already ordering me," he replied in a little hushed voice. "Ha. 10. 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐬, Damien. You can stop now. I don't think he'll be able to move for a long time again," he called out to his companions. "5 more minutes, please," he replied, one of the men, as the other 2 grabbed him away from the wolf and walked towards us. I thanked the 3 of them as they came and stood beside Elias. "I'm not sure if a thank you is enough," said the one who had to be dragged here. "Can we have the pleasure to know your name?" "I'm Amara," I replied, hoping that we'll part our ways soon. "I'm Theo, the hot one," he said, pointing towards himself. "This is Rome, the nerd," he said, pointing at the one with glasses. "That is Damien, our mom," he said, pointing out at the mom who made an annoyed face. "And that is Elias, the ass of the group, if it isn't obvious," he said. As he said that, Elias smacked Theo's head, causing him to roll his eyes. "It's Elias." "Are you going to the Christmas celebration?" asked Elias. "Yeah, I am. I think I should go now. My parents will be worried," I replied as I hinted the fact that someone is probably looking for me. "Ah, great. Then I suppose you wouldn't mind accompanying us there," said Elias with an arched eyebrow and a little smirk. "Sure," I said as I started walking towards the town hall with the 4 of them behind me. "As soon as I reach there, I'll just go and hide in the crowd." As we neared the town hall, we could hear the Alpha's speech. He was talking about a very important werewolf figure coming to the celebration in search for his mate and how we all have to make him feel as welcomed as he can. We walked in as he was about to finish his speech. He glanced at the newly appearing guests. "Oh, they are already here. Please welcome our guests," he said, looking towards me. "No, more like behind me," as the other people turned their heads towards us. They stared at me, then behind me as I stared back at them. I saw my parents looking at me with the same confusion as I was looking at them. "The people in your town are very kind, Brutus. She agreed to guide us here," said Elias as I turned towards him. "I'm glad, Elias. I don't expect less from my citizens. I'm sure you'd like to take a look at the females to check if any of them is your mate. We made them stand in a line for it to be easier." "There is no need," Elias replied as he looked at me, not letting his eyes wander anywhere else. "I believe I've already found my mate." "Already found your mate? Did you smell her from afar? Who is she?" said our clueless alpha. "Come on, Brutus, can't you already make out that Amara is his mate?" Theo said while rolling his eyes. "I am not against the mate system in the werewolf species, but I don't want to be involved with it. If I am his mate, then I'll have to say goodbye to all my travel plans, and all the money that I've earned till now will go to waste." I thought to myself, "So it is Amara. Very well, since you've already found your mate, I guess there is no reason to delay the celebrations any more than this." "You can begin them," Elias replied as he started taking steps towards me. What do I do? I grew more and more anxious. What can I do? I ended up doing what all the girls in the werewolf stories do. I ran. Chapter 3. Amara's POV. I'm always running away from my responsibilities and problems. I ran into the forest behind the town hall. I knew he was following me. I couldn't hear him, but I could feel his eyes on me. I ran as fast as I could, moving the branches and leaves out my way through my hands. I usually act like an idiot in stressful situations. Of course, I had to do the same in this one. While running, I turned my head to check whether he was behind me and ended my tripping on a log of wood which was very conveniently placed there. As I almost fell, someone grabbed my hand, pulling me in the opposite direction. I could almost guess who that someone was. Not that I don't enjoy the chase, but why are you running? Amara said Elias in a deeper voice, causing me to look at him. His eyes were flickering from black to normal, letting me know that both he and his wolf were talking to me. I don't want to be stuck at one place, I replied, looking into his eyes. I want to travel, and I know how all the females have to go and stay with their male mates just because they belong to them. Who told you that I won't let you what you want to do? As much as I like the idea of locking you away forever, I won't stop you from living your dream. I'll live the dream with you, he replies as he caressed my cheek with his thumb while looking into my eyes. Well, Theo, Rome, and Damien will also live the dream with us, but yeah. He took my hand into his as he placed it on his cheek as he sighed. And about the part where you said you belong to me, that is true, but I belong to you just as much. He then brought it down to his heart. I won't say I already love you, but the moment I saw you, I knew that my heart belongs to you. And so does my. He went lower than his heart, making me wonder what he was implying. It suddenly hit me, and I pulled my hand away, shaking my head. He chuckled. I know I haven't described him yet, but it is only because I have no words to. No, he isn't perfect, but he is terrifyingly beautiful. There is a scar that runs down from his cheek to his jawline, making you wonder the history behind it. His hazel brown eyes look like they have a beautiful yet tragic story to tell. His black hair, probably messed up by running, cover a little bit of his eyes. Are you brain dead? He said, waving his hand in front of my eyes, bringing me back from my trance. We should head back. Your parents must be worried. Oh, Shay, my mom is going to kill me, I gasped. Bad words don't look good coming out from your beautiful mouth, he said, while smirking. Oh, I'm effing sorry, I replied. He shook his head as he started walking towards the town hall. I followed him and we walked in comfortable silence. Amara, don't you run away like that again, my mom said as she hugged me. I'm sorry, I replied as I hugged her back. I know how you feel, honey. But we could have talked about it together, she said as she patted my head. I nodded. Mr. and Mrs. Campbell, you both should go and enjoy the celebration. We'll make sure that Amara doesn't run away again, Theo said, as he winked at my mom, and Dad reluctantly agreed and went off to enjoy the celebrations. I was hoping they would do that. They always compromise too much for me. I mean, I know that Elias isn't that good-looking, Amara, but did you really have to run away like that and break his heart? Teased Theo. No, I ran because I realized that being his mate would mean spending time with you and having to look at your face, I replied back, causing the other three to chuckle when 𝐿𝐤 mouthed ouch and put his hands on his heart. Amara wants to travel, so I promised her that we all will travel together, said Elias as he looked at me. You don't how much we've already traveled while looking for you, Amara, said 𝐊𝐼. But we'll be willing to travel wherever you want us to, added Damien. As long as Mama Damien agrees to carry me on his back, said 𝐿𝐤, sticking out his tongue at Damien. How can you all travel with me? I don't mean to be rude, but don't you all have mates as well? I asked them, confused. Ah, my dear Amara, we three cannot have mates. We simply belong to the Wattpadians, replied 𝐿𝐤 while winking at God knows where. Chapter 4. Amara's POV. After the celebration, I went back with my parents in order to pack and say our goodbyes. Elias said that we would leave the next evening so that I have enough time to meet everyone before leaving. Can't believe that I won't have anyone to annoy me anymore, my dad said as we entered the house. Don't worry, I'll call every day and I'll visit as much as I can, I replied while sticking out my tongue at it. Don't you think you guys are going too fast? I mean, you should get to know each other before leaving, my mom said with worry evident in her statement. I did ask him that, but he said he has to go back before the New Year's and our town is 4 days away from where he lives, due to which he won't be able to visit me again and again, so it is more practical to go live with him, I said as I recalled what I was told. I'm really going to miss you, Amara, my mom said as her eyes flickered from black to green as tears threatened to pour out of them. I'm going to miss you too, my mama wolf, I replied as I hugged her tightly, not wanting to let go. My dad joined the hug as he caressed my head. I knew that their wolves loved me as much as they did, if not more. I'm going to miss all 4 of them. We all then went upstairs to help me pack my stuff and recall all our favorite memories together. I couldn't sleep well that night. It was probably because I was excited and terrified about what life is going to bring next for me. I knew Elias would treat me well. His actions towards me were proof enough. But would I be able to live with freedom that I have desired for so long? Would I be given respect as Elias's mate or as a human? Would the other wolves be as kind as the ones in my town? And most importantly, who is Elias? Who are 𝐊𝐼, 𝐿𝐤, Damien? Why were they treated as very important individuals during the celebration? I woke up at around 9 a.m. thanks to my alarm. I could hear people downstairs, apart from my parents. Confused, I went downstairs only to find Elias, 𝐊𝐼, 𝐿𝐤, and Damien sitting around the kitchen counter along with my dad, with my mom leaning over it, talking to each other. They must have sensed me through their werewolf senses because they all turned to my direction at the same time. Oh, it's the lady from my nightmares, said 𝐿𝐤, earning a smack on the head by Elias. Well, since we're going to be living together, they should get used to it. Good morning to you too, I replied, rubbing my eyes. Good morning, Amara, Elias said, getting up from his seat and offering it to me. It's okay, I'll go back upstairs to freshen up soon anyway, I replied. Yeah, you really should, 𝐿𝐤 said while half laughing. This time I smacked his head. I was telling them stories about you, my mom said, smiling. I hope she hasn't told them about that time. I was like 5 and I didn't like to be treated as an outsider in school. You know how when werewolves shift back to their human form, they're naked. So what I did was I ran around the school naked, telling everyone that I had just come back from my run until they called my parents. Lost in recalling the event, I didn't notice that Elias had risen from his seat and was now standing before me. He then leaned and whispered into my ears, I'm not against you running around, but I do think that only I should be able to see you naked, causing my eyes to widen with shock. I looked at the others and found them looking away while 𝐿𝐤 was smirking at me. I'll go back to my room now, I said while taking huge steps back to my room. I had decided to go meet my manager and Ella in the bakery to bid farewell to them, and Elias insisted on accompanying me. 𝐊𝐼 and Damien were going to explore the town a little while 𝐿𝐤 wanted to stay home to watch movies and eat popcorn. On the way to the bakery, I showed Elias different parts of the town and told him my childhood memories related to them while he smiled looking at me. I did feel like it was only me telling him my past and my dreams, but I had decided to ask all 4 of them my questions on the way back home. They couldn't ignore or escape me then. Ella hugged and cried when I told her that I would be leaving, while my manager held in some tears and told me that he would miss his best employee. Elias was standing a little away from us in order to give us some privacy. I met a few other people on our way back, bidding them goodbyes. So, where will we be going? I asked Elias. The city of 𝐊𝐿𝐼𝐼, he replied as we walked in the house. The city of 𝐊𝐼𝐼? Sounds like a beautiful place, right? It is also the place where the war between humans and werewolves took place about 100 years ago. Chapter 5. Amara's POV. Saying goodbye to your loved ones is always hard, especially if you don't know when you'll be seeing them next. As the evening approached much faster than expected, the four of them helped me put my bags in their car. While they waited near the car, I said my final goodbye to my parents, and of course Mom wouldn't let me leave without all those waterworks. Seeing her cry while hearing her wolf whine, I didn't want to leave at all. This had been my home for 19 years, but I knew that if I didn't leave here now, I would have left it sooner or later. I hugged both of my parents and whispered bye, because I knew if I tried to speak I would choke on my words and start crying. I walked to the car. With Theo holding the door open for me, I went inside. Theo, Damien and I were sitting in the back seat with me in the middle while Elias was driving with 𝐊𝐼𝐼 next to him. I could see Elias looking at me through the rearview mirror once in a while during the drive. So I have been wanting to ask you guys some questions, I said while I played with the stray thread coming out of my sweater. Go ahead, said Elias, causing me to look up and back at the mirror into his eyes. Who are you? I asked bluntly, surprising myself a little during the process. Who do you think we are? Asked Theo from beside me. Well, I had been thinking last night and I came to a conclusion, but I'm not sure if it is correct, I replied. Care to enlighten us? Asked 𝐊𝐼𝐼 while closing the book he was reading. You all were treated as very important people during the celebration, so it would mean that you are important to the werewolf community. There are 4 of you, and we were taught that the people who helped the werewolves to win the war were 4 in number. And you are extremely strong because you didn't even display your strength last night. And lastly, you live in 𝐊𝐼𝐼, the city of war, I said, while looking into Elias's eyes, searching whether what I said was true or not. Good observations, Amara, Damien said while handing me a cookie. Yeah, he is like a mom. So do you hate us now? Do you hate us because we are the reason humans lost? Asked Elias. Do you hate me? He slowly whispered. If I hated you, I wouldn't have come with you, I replied as I sighed. If I was at war, I would also have teamed up with my own species. I can't blame you for doing so as well. We would have never taken part in the war if we had a choice, Theo said, with his eyes looking furious and sad, as if he was recalling a distant memory. Are you okay? I asked him while patting his back. Your turn to drive, Theo, Elias said as he parked the car on the side of the road. We drove like this for around 3 to 4 days while stopping at motels a few times until we finally reached the grounds of 𝐊𝐼𝐼. To say it was beautiful is an understatement. All the other cities and countries that I had looked at in the pictures seemed nothing in comparison to this city. One could never imagine that a gruesome and unforgiving war had ever taken place in the grounds of this beauty. The city had no modern homes. All of it was ancient architecture which only seemed to beautify it even more. The houses and the trees were still decorated, indicating that the holiday spirit hadn't lessened and that the people were ready to greet the new year. We seemed to be driving away from the town and towards the mountain covered with forests and green. I couldn't help but stare out of the window in fascination until Elias coughed, making me realize that I had come very close to him, as he was the one sitting near the window seat. I smiled and mouthed sorry as I sat back onto my seat, waiting for us to reach. I was finally able to see the house. It wasn't a mansion, but it was big enough to fit all of us. I liked it. I liked the feeling of a small and cozy home. Could I call it home yet? As we got down from the car, I helped the 4 to carry the bags into the house, as they had their bags as well. Theo switched on the lights, letting the house show that it was just as beautiful on the inside as it was on the outside. There was a drawing room with 3 couches, a TV, a table with scented candles, 2 bookshelves next to the fireplace. Then there was an open kitchen and a dining room, which basically consisted of a dining table. We thought a large mansion would be too much to handle, Elias said, while caressing the back of my head. It's perfect, I said while smiling at him and the others. They then showed me my room, which was opposite to Elias's and next to Theo's. It was just as cozy as any other part of the house. If you need anything, you can ask any of us, Damien said while leaving. The dinner duty is mine for today. I'll be telling you when you have yours. You can freshen up now and come for dinner. It will be ready in an hour. Yes, Mom, I said. I took a bath and freshened up as advised and went to the kitchen to find them already at the table. I took a seat next to Elias, and we all had a wonderful dinner while we talked and laughed. If only I had thought then, wasn't everything going perfectly? Chapter 6. Early Update O. Amara's POV. My bed and I are in a very serious relationship. The next few days involved the four of us hanging out together, while Elias and I slowly bonded with each other. I was happy that he understood the fact that I needed some time and respected it. It was another morning where I covered my ears while I tried to sleep for 5 more minutes as 𝐿𝐲 banged on the door telling me that it was my turn to make the breakfast. I sighed as I finally got up, brushed my teeth and took a bath. I then went into the kitchen to find Elias and 𝐿𝐲 sitting on the counter. "What are we having for breakfast today?" 𝐿𝐲 chirped. "What would you like to eat, Princess 𝐿𝐲?" I replied as I took out the appliances. "Princess 𝐿𝐲 orders thee to serve yours truly some waffles with chocolate drizzle on them," he said as he fixed his imaginary crown. "As you wish," I replied as I began to search for the material. I saw the bowl lying on top of the shelf as I tried to reach it. Even after standing on the tip of my toes, I didn't quite reach it. I suddenly felt a presence behind me and then saw a hand reach the bowl as I turned around. It was Elias. We looked at each other feeling a little tension until there was a cough. "𝐿𝐲." I turned my head left and right, trying to look everywhere else. Elias handed me the bowl while whispering, "I wanted to talk to you. Can you come to my room in the evening at around 6? I could only nod. Different kind of thoughts ran into my mind. Thoughts that I'm not very proud of. 𝐊𝐥𝐸𝐵, stupid mind. I kept wondering what he wanted to talk about, and I knew that my curiosity would only grow further. I had tried everything to distract my mind. I even helped Damien clean the whole house, but nothing worked. It was finally 5:55, and I was just pacing in my room. Then I heard a knock on my door, which made my heart skip a beat. I knew it was Elias. I opened the door, and it was really him. "Ha, knew it." "Can we talk now?" he said. "Yeah, sure," I replied as I grew more and more nervous. We went inside the room and I was just standing near the door, ready to run when needed. "So, what did you want to talk about?" I asked him. "Oh, it isn't anything important. I just wanted to know you more. And since the 3 are always around, we don't really get to much as just the 2 of us," he said as he motioned me to sit down next to him on the couch. "Ah, what a relief," I said to myself. "Okay, let's ask each other one question at a time." "You can go first," I replied as I sat down. "What is your favorite animal?" he asked. "I'm more of a dog person, and you?" "Oh wait, how could I ask him that?" I mentally shook my head. He chuckled. "Well, believe it or not, I find cats fascinating. /n, which kind?" "Interesting. How long have you honored this earth with your presence?" For I teased a little. I knew the war had taken place around 100 years ago, so he had to be ancient. "Ouch, age is a sensitive topic for me," he pretended to be hurt as he put his hand on his chest. "I must be around 123. "You're just as ancient as this city," I mumbled. "That is not true. The city is 1 year older than me," he replied, as if it made a difference. "Actually, I want to ask you 2 questions. "Go ahead," I said as I sensed a little nervousness in his statement. "My wolf has been bothering me for a while. He really wants to meet you. He isn't letting me wear my favorite shirt because he claims he will be wearing it the day he gets to meet you, since it happens to be his lucky shirt. Would you like to meet him tomorrow and spend the day with him? Rome and Damien are going to town for some work anyway, and he really wants to show you a place," he said. "It would be my pleasure," I replied as I smiled at both him and his wolf. "As for my second question, have you dated before?" he asked while looking at me seriously. "Well, it is my turn to ask you, so I shall ask you the same question," I reply. "I really hadn't dated yet. It was probably because I'm very awkward at intimacy." He sighed. "I'm not using this as an excuse or anything, but I had been looking for you for so long. I started around the time after the war. After 70 years, I started giving up, and I did have a fling with one lady. But the 3 motivated me to search for you again. They knew you had to exist. I knew you had to exist. So I started searching for you again, and I wouldn't have given up even if I didn't find you for the next 100 years," he said with honesty in his eyes. I understand that he had lived for really long, and I understood that he meant every word he said, but I couldn't help feeling slight, just a little jealous. It's all right. I have also had a first kiss, I replied. Ah, how did it happen, he said, with different emotions crossing his eyes. I was like 16, and we hung out a lot together. His name was Rusty. Every evening we would go for walks. His parents and my parents knew we were inseparable. That evening was just like any other. We were hanging out as I was patting his head when he suddenly jumped towards me and kissed me. He even used his tongue, I said, trying to sound as serious as I could. Do you know what he said after that? What he asked. I felt a little bad when I looked at his sad eyes. Woof, I replied as I laughed and looked at his face, which was completely stunned. I waved my hand in front of his face, but he looked as if he was thinking about something. I decided to leave him with his thoughts and went outside the room and into the corridor. As I was still laughing while recalling the situation, I was pulled towards something and then pushed against the wall with as little force as possible. Dang, it's always a wall. Then I felt his lips over mine. It wasn't a make-out session. It was just a long peck which still left me in utter shock. I waited for him to say something, and he did. Woof, he replied as he smirked and went back into his room. I just stood there while biting my lips as I do when I'm thinking until I heard a crunch. Theo, Rome, and Damien were standing at the end of the corridor. Theo had a bucket of popcorn in his hands while he was eating some of it. Rome had a book which was currently being used to cover his face, while Damien was looking at the ceiling very curiously. We were going to watch a movie, but then saw a live one going on. The genre is rom-com. Theo finally spoke. I walked towards them, took a handful of popcorn in my hands and ate some of them. So what are we watching? Chapter 7. Almost at 500 reads? Seems like yesterday when I had one, which was probably my own. Chapter dedicated to Rebel Kitty 360. Thank you for being my first ever follower. Amara's POV. We spent the New Year's Eve watching movies and eating popcorn. It was finally morning, and I woke up early realizing that it was the day I was going to get to meet Elias's wolf. I was really excited. I did all the morning necessities and went to the kitchen where Theo, Rome, and Damien were eating breakfast in a hurry. Slow down or you'll choke, I told them. We are already late. If we take our time, then Elias will kill us, Rome said in a serious voice which made it hard for me to understand whether he was joking or not. They finished their breakfast and were running out of the door. Where are you going, though? I asked Theo while he was putting his coat on. We have many responsibilities, Amara, he replied. Responsibility, what I said. Responsibilities, he smirked. Even though if it was up to me, I'd only keep the titties part. He winked and then ran out of the door, and I turned back shaking my head. I saw Elias standing at the window, his back facing me. So when do I get to meet the doggy? I teased. He turned, letting me see his eyes, which were pitch black but still hinted amusement in them. Now, he replied, causing me to gulp. Elias's wolf had simply asked me to follow him, and on the way to wherever we were going, we didn't speak a word. Finally, we reached on top of the forested mountain, and the view was simply breathtaking. We sat down on the grass, facing the city. I could see that he was wearing a light blue button-down shirt, which was probably his lucky shirt. So, do you have a name? I asked him while playing with the grass. I go by the name of Lion, he replied, concentrating all his attention on me. Were you named after the city? I asked him curiously. No, it's quite the opposite. The city was named after me. It had a different name before the war. They changed it to honor their war hero. I could sense the sarcasm in his last line. If you don't mind, can I hold your hand? I have been wanting to do it ever since I met you, but Elias wouldn't let me. Instead of replying, I took his hand on mine and caressed it with my other hand while I smiled at him. He sighed in relief. It brings me a sense of calm. Touching you, that is, he said. I'm supposed to be very scary and strong, but sitting here next to you right now, I want to do nothing except for just hug you all day long. I laughed at his confession. You're anything but scary and strong right now. In fact, you're really cute. You're the only one I'll be cute around, my moon, he replied while kissing my cheek. I'm glad to have this honor, I said, smiling. I wanted to ask you something. Go ahead, he said as he squeezed my hand. You had been looking for me for 100 years, and I know mates mean a lot in the werewolf world, but there has to be something else. It can't be the only reason. Moreover, 𝐿𝐤 said that he, �R''𝐬, and 𝐷𝐸𝐸 cannot have mates. What is all that about? I asked him. 𝐿𝐤𝐬. Quite observant, aren't you? He said while looking back at the city. Well, before we four joined the war, believe it or not, the humans were the ones winning. Their casualties were a lot less. Their weapons seemed to be working and everything was going fine until we joined the war. They win became defeat immediately. I won't lie, during the war one killed many humans. One of them happened to be the husband of a very powerful witch who cursed the four of us for joining the war. What was the curse? I kind of had a feeling that I already knew it. I think you've already guessed that it is related to you. The curse of that of immortality. Werewolves already have a long lifespan, but we had become immune to any weapon or any magic. That is, until now. 𝐿𝐤, �R''𝐬, and 𝐷𝐸𝐸 curse included that they won't have any mates, bruh. And mine was that I would have one, and when I found her, our immortality would disappear, he said with his eyes looking distant. Then why did you search for me? You guys could have remained immortal, I asked with confusion. Living a long life isn't a pleasure, Amara. We all desire to die, he looked at me. No, I didn't only look for you to die. But I would prefer dying with you rather than staying alive without you. Did you all desire to join the war? Because I remember 𝐿𝐤 saying that he wouldn't have done it if he had a choice, I questioned. No, neither of us did. The elders at that time had captured all our family and loved ones, forcing us to join the war. And even after we won it, they killed them, he said as sadness covered his eyes. I didn't think for a moment and hugged him. You have suffered a lot. I hope you don't have to anymore. I don't think I will now that I have you. My moon, he replied as he hugged me back tightly. I hope you'll agree to spend a day like this with me again. I will. I like you better than the other one anyway, I winked. Shall we go back now, doggy? I teased, causing him to growl lowly and me to laugh. We went back together holding hands. As we neared the house, we could see smoke. We ran towards it only to find the whole house on fire while 𝐿𝐤, �R''𝐬, and 𝐷𝐸𝐸 were standing outside talking to each other. We went to their side to inspect closely and saw something written with ashes near the porch. It said, Happy New Year. Chapter 8. Dedicated to Mrs. BZB and Benihime 2211, thank you very much for your constant support through the comments and votes. Amara's POV. Happy New Year. Well, New Year isn't looking so happy now, commented 𝐿𝐤 while scratching the back of his head. Who could have done this? I asked them. We have many enemies, but it isn't hard to guess who it was. �R''𝐬 replied while fixing his glasses. Humans, I whispered, while processing the situation. Don't worry, Amara. It isn't the first time, 𝐷𝐸𝐸 said, patting my head. But it is the first time in 30 years, 𝐿𝐤 replied, which earned him a glare from Elias. In 30 years? You mean since the last revolt? I could only guess what this had meant. All four of them were mortal now. It would be a perfect chance to harm them and the werewolf community as a whole. We'll talk about this later. Let's go to the town. I have made reservations at a hotel. We'll be leaving tomorrow, Elias said while taking my hand gently while leading the way. While we were talking, the fire truck was already at work and the fire had been controlled. /N for all the people worried that the house was still on fire while they were talking. Where will we be going? I asked 𝐿𝐤 while 𝐷𝐸𝐸, Elias, and �R''𝐬 were checking in the hotel. Every year, the elders and the important people have a meeting. Our presence is a must, but it usually happens in summers. I guess our house wasn't the only target, he replied while checking the receptionist out. I am a human, I told him. Thanks for telling me. I was wondering if you were a llama or something, he said while rolling his eyes. I playfully hit his shoulders. No, you a sput. Will I be allowed there? A sput. And they can't stop you. Unless they don't want us to be there, he said, smiling. Don't worry, everyone will be kind. Except for, you'll know when you see her. We have checked in. Go freshen up yourself. We'll have to go shop for some clothes, 𝐷𝐸𝐸 said while handing us our keys. We all did as Mama 𝐷𝐸𝐸 commanded and met each other at the hotel lobby in the evening to go shop for clothes and eat dinner outside. After shopping for casual clothes, since most of our shit was burnt, we had to go buy some formals for the gathering, so we entered a shop. As we entered, 𝐿𝐤 grabbed my hand and dragged me in while squealing out in a girly voice. Oh my God, honey, shopping is the best. 𝐀𝐢𝐪. I huffed and stomped my foot on the floor while replying in a deep voice, "I hate shopping." Damien, Elias, and Rome walked at a distance from us, pretending to be strangers. We all bought our choice of clothes, refusing to show each other until the night of the gathering. It was 2 days from now. So Theo already told that every year this gathering takes place during summers. The werewolf elders and recognized people from the community take part in this gathering, which is a political one. Some new rules are made, and some old ones are demolished. The date and location of the gathering is only known to the members in order to prevent any attacks. While in the gathering, everyone's wolf is in control while the human side is in the back. There is also good food. After shopping and having dinner, everyone returned to their rooms. I was just about to change into my pajamas when I heard a knock on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw that it was Elias. I opened the door while smiling. "Hi." "Oh great, you haven't changed yet. I was wondering if you wanted to go for a short night walk," he said while his eyes gleamed with hope. "I don't know, I prefer long ones," I teased. "And that's what she said." "Your wish is my command," he smiled while bowing. "Let's go," he offered his hand, and I gladly took it. The walk was pleasant. We talked a lot and shared laughs and smiles. He insisted me to call my parents during the walk, which made me a little sad remembering all the memories while talking to them, but he caressed my head the whole time, letting me know that he was there. He said goodnight as he dropped me back to my room, but I couldn't let him go without kissing his cheek and saying goodnight myself, and then quickly banging the door at his face. I saw his expression through the peephole, and it was that of a subtle shock. The next morning we set out early for the city of Petra. An attack on Titan fans. Put your hands up where the gathering was supposed to take place. It is around 10 hours away from Lyon, and we were hoping to reach there by dinner time. We did. The next day, I hung out with Rome and Damien while Theo and Elias had gone out to see the arrangements and meet a few people. Rome and Damien showed me around the city and fed me delicious food, so I was really happy. I wasn't loading on them in any way though, because I paid for my own clothes and hotel room, but who can deny free food? By evening, we all went to our rooms to get ready for the gathering. I put on my dress and some makeup. Insert makeup tutorial here to go with it. Looking at the mirror, I wondered if everything would go okay tonight. I was hoping it would. What could possibly go wrong, right? Chapter 9, Part 1. Dedicated to Perp 127 and her love for Elias P. Amara's POV. I am not good at social situations. I'm not really sure what I feel about being surrounded by around 20 of the most important figures in the werewolf community who will all have their werewolves in control in order to discuss new rules which are probably not going to be in favor of US humans. How will I keep quiet against a matter that will decide the future of my species? Will I keep quiet? As I was lost in my thoughts, I heard a knock on my door. I turned around and found Theo standing at the door, leaning against it with his arms crossed. His eyes all black, letting me know that it wasn't the usual Theo. I had never met any of the other three's wolf, and I didn't know what to expect at all. "You look good," I comment while I assess him. "It's because I dressed this fool," he replied, referring to his human self. I don't disagree with that. I smirk, knowing that Theo is listening. "I'm Amara. I believe we haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet," I say while offering my hand for a shake. "I'm 𝐊𝐥𝐿," he says, taking my hand while gently shaking it. "Everyone is waiting. Come on," he leads the way. At the door, Damien and Rome stood looking just as good as Theo, Damien whispering something in Rome's ears, making Rome smile. I am pretty sure something is going on between these two, but it could be my fangirl mind making things up. A hand slides into mine and I look to my side, smiling as I know who it is. "You look breathtaking," he whispers into my ears and kisses my cheek. "You don't look so bad yourself, doggy," I reply, causing him to growl lowly and me to laugh, which then causes him to smile. He is wearing a white formal shirt, unbuttoned at our top with black pants. His one hand holds mine while the other is holding his jacket over his shoulder to complete his suit. "Let's go," 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐬 says as he opens the door. The car ride was as enjoyable as any other. Rome's wolf is named Raphael while Damien's is named Gabriel, or how 𝐊𝐿𝐴 puts it, Gabby. Raphael, just like Rome, enjoys his reading time while Gabby is more into modern music. Let's just say that our car ride was full of him singing loud music with me, joining in whenever a song that I knew came up. 𝐊𝐿𝐴 is a complete opposite of Theo, though his snarky comments told me that there is a little of 𝐊𝐢 inside him as well. "We're here, Elias announced, and I looked out of the window to see a large gate and behind it, an even larger mansion which can be compared to a castle. The guards came up to the car, and as soon as they saw Elias, they bowed and opened the door. We arrived at the driveway and got down of the car. As I looked up at the stairway leading up to the mansion, I could see a woman coming down, probably to greet us. "She is the one we warned you about," 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐬𝐭 whispered, causing me to look at him in confusion. When she came down, Rome went to greet her back but got ignored as she pulled Elias in for a hug. "I've been waiting for so long. You never visit me unless it's the gathering." She looks up at him with a pout. "And I never will." Elias 𝐊𝐢𝐽 dismisses her and comes to my side. His hand holds my waist, bringing me closer to him. "Emily, meet my mate, Amara." I awkwardly wave at her. "A human? What a disgrace," she spits out, causing all four of them to growl. "Just kidding," she replied slyly as she twirls around and then starts walking towards the mansion, but not before grabbing Elias's arms and taking him along. "Aren't you others coming?" she says without even looking back at us. The mansion was enormous and beautifully decorated, but I'm not sure how someone would live here. "Like, won't you forget where your room is?" "I know I would." She led us to where all the others had gathered. When we entered, they all looked extremely happy to see their wartime heroes and even gave me some warm smiles. They all started talking, mostly about things I didn't know. The main part of the gathering was to be held after dinner. I know, priorities, right? Clapping her hands in order to get everyone's attention, Emily asked all of us to gather for dinner. We approached the dining table and everyone started taking their seats. Most of the other werewolf's mates were sitting on their laps or beside them. I was a little uncomfortable with the PDA, so Elias had said that he had arranged a seat for me beside me. When everyone took their seats, I was just standing there awkwardly. There was no seat for me. Elias was sitting at the head seat with 𝐊𝐢 and Emily at his side, Emily looking at him happily. "Where is the seat for Amara?" Elias asked calmly, but anger was evident in his eyes. "Oh, I forgot to arrange it. I was really busy today, you know," 𝐊𝐢𝐽, Emily said while caressing his shoulder. Elias/𝐊𝐿ion stood up and led me to his seat, making me sit on it while standing beside me, smiling down at me. "𝐊𝐿ion, you don't need to stand. I'll arrange some for her after we have dinner," Emily replied while looking at me furiously. I was done with her. She was hating on me for no reason, and I wasn't going to take it anymore. "𝐊𝐿ion, you should sit down," I spoke as I stood up and made him sit on his seat. "See, she gets it," Emily replied with a smile that wasn't very friendly. After making him sit, I went and sat on his lap like many other mates were, causing Elias/𝐊𝐿ion to shift a little in surprise. "You don't need to do that. It will make you both uncomfortable," she said furiously while gritting her teeth. "I'll arrange a chair for you right now." "It's all right. This is my favorite seat anyway," I replied with the same smile that she gave me, causing Elias/𝐊𝐿ion to chuckle, while 𝐊𝐢 was full-on laughing and the others were smiling at me. She looked back at me like she was going to kill me. Little did I know. Chapter 9 Part 2. Amara's POV. The dinner went quite nicely. Emily had been quiet for most of it, and the food was good. It was now time for the discussion regarding humans and werewolves. We were now in a gallery, with everyone sitting on sofas. The elders have decided on implementing a few rules, and we all are here to discuss whether they will be passed or not, spoke one of the men, and everyone nodded. "We shall discuss about the first rule, and probably the most important one," he said, while lifting up the letter and opening it. "Humans have been quiet for some time. It is impossible to think that they aren't planning anything. It cannot be a mere coincidence that all the figures present here had their houses burnt in a fire. It has to be the humans planning a revolt. We have decided to ban traveling for them. They cannot leave their packs unless permitted to, or if they have a werewolf mate accompanying them," he finished. "Any suggestions?" "Where is the proof?" I spoke up. "Proof?" He eyed me while raising one of his eyebrows. "The proof that it was the humans who burnt your houses." "It could have been someone else," I replied. "No offense, my dear, but we werewolves do not betray our brothers and sisters like the humans," he smirked. "Even if it was the humans, instead of banning traveling for all of them, shouldn't you be looking for the ones who did it?" I was getting annoyed. "All of us cannot be punished just because of a few. It wasn't fair. They were going to take every pinch of freedom from us, and I couldn't stay quiet." I am pretty sure not all of the humans were part of this. How can you punish everyone? Don't you know how humans work? If they don't listen, you punish them to set an example so that they won't do it again, spoke another person from the group. If you keep punishing us, eventually not only a few, but all of us will be against you, I stated. Are you threatening us? Little girl Emily spoke, standing up while fixing her blood-red gown. Lion, perhaps it would be better if your mate goes to a room for the time being. After the discussion is over, she can come back. I looked at Lion Elias, and I could see an internal battle in his eyes. Then I looked at the other people and realized the only reason why I got all the warm smiles is because I'm his mate, not because I am an individual with my own thoughts. I didn't blame him for not standing up for me, but it did hurt. Instead, I stood up myself and turned towards Emily. Would you be kind enough to tell me where the room is? I asked politely. Second floor, far left corner, she dismissed me. As I started walking, I could hear Lion Elias faintly whispering sorry, but I will do something. I walked up the stairs, trying to sway my mind onto other things. The corridor of the second floor had large windows which let the moonlight sweep in and light it up beautifully. If I wasn't in a bad mood, I would have stayed to admire the beauty more. I finally reached the room and opened the door. It was probably one of the many guest rooms in the castle. It was well decorated with all the required necessities. I went and sat on the chair near the opened window, which I supposed was there to let the air in. I sighed as the air flew against my face. Got kicked out of the discussion. A voice spoke from behind me, causing me to flinch and look back. It wasn't anyone who I remembered from downstairs. Who are you? I said while standing up and looking around the room, looking for anything with which I could defend myself. Amara, the mate of the one guy who brought us doom, he said while taking steps towards me, causing me to move backwards until I almost fell out of the window, but he caught me. 𝐀𝐥𝐻, wouldn't want to die falling from here now, would you? He moved his fingers along my face. I cringed and pushed him, which made him stumble backwards. What do you want? I asked him. Are you one of them, the ones who caused the fire? Aren't you an intelligent mind? And if by one of them you mean humans, yes, I am. You are the one missing the human in her here. Didn't you see how they aren't ready to listen to anything? How did you not kill any of them? He spoke with anger evident in his words. What I want is to kill every one of them, starting with your hero of a mate. He sat on the bed. But killing him won't be enough. I think killing you would make him more terrible. Do you think so as well? I knew that this guy was psychotic and that I had to get out of here and get help before he does anything, so I decided to rush towards the door. But he was fast enough to stop me and yank me away from the door while covering my mouth to prevent me from screaming. Shh, shh, aish, ow. I struggled and fought his hold. My back was turned towards him and I decided to do the only thing I was good at doing. I kicked his balls, causing him to cry in pain and me to take this opportunity. I did kick hard enough, but he still grabbed me by my hair, pulling me back and causing me immense agony by kicking me in the stomach. I fell down while holding my stomach tightly. I would have considered taking you, he spoke while bending down, but now I'd rather see you burning with this mansion, he whispered. He walked away from the room. I tried standing up, but the blow to my stomach was hard, which caused me to fall back into the same position. As I lay down there, I suddenly sensed the burning smell and saw the light, which was probably the fire, coming towards me while destroying everything in its path. I screamed for help, but no one came. As my eyes started blurring, I saw a shadow near the door, but it quickly turned when it saw me looking. As it turned, it caused whatever it was wearing to flow and allowed me to see the color. It was blood red. I knew Elias would come looking for me, and if he did, the fire would consume us both. I decided this wasn't the time for me to die and stood up with all my will. I took the blanket I found on the bed and covered myself with it and walked out of the door. The fire was everywhere. Somehow I managed to come down the stairs, and in the dining room, I could see that the fire was spreading really fast. As I started moving forward, the blanket I was wearing got stuck on a nail and was snatched away from me. At the same time, the chandelier on top of me fell. I had some time to respond and backed away enough to prevent it from falling on my head, but not enough to prevent it from falling on my legs. The fire was reaching my body slowly, starting from my legs. I saw Elias standing on the corridor looking everywhere frantically. I wanted to scream his name, but my body didn't allow me. All that came out was a faint whisper before I fell into the abyss of darkness. Chapter 10. Amara's POV. There, peeping among the cloud rack above a dark tor high up in the mountains, Sam saw a white star twinkle for a while. The beauty of it smote his heart, as he looked up out of the forsaken land, and hope returned to him. For like a shaft, clear and cold, the thought pierced him that in the end the shadow was only a small and passing thing. There was a light and high beauty forever beyond its reach. Rome closed the book. He would read me a few lines every day while sitting next to me. I could not respond to him in any way, so he probably didn't even know that I could hear every word he said. The book he was reading was called The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. I remember him reading the title out loud along with the author's name when he first started reading for me. I believe it had been around 4 to 5 days since I had been conscious about what was going around me, but I wasn't sure how long it had been since I had been lying on this bed. I could recall what all had happened to me on that godforsaken day. I was sure that it had been Elias who had saved me. But ever since I could tell what was happening around me, there wasn't even a single visit from Elias. I could sense Damien changing the sheets, Theo, who would come with his laptop and popcorn and would watch movies beside me and talk to me as if I was listening, Rome, and a nurse who would change my clothes and give me a sponge bath and did the other necessities. Elias hadn't come a single day. I didn't know what to think of it. I really wanted to see him. I really needed him by my side. I could only hope that nothing bad had happened to him and that everything was all right. Amara, wake up now, or I will tell you the spoilers from all the Game of Thrones episodes you have missed, Theo shouted as he entered the room. He better not, or he won't be there to see any winter coming. It has already been 2 weeks. The doctor said she should wake up by now, Damien commented from somewhere within the room. Elias has been going crazy. It has been so hard to control him. When his name was mentioned, I could feel my heartbeat going faster. I wanted to wake up. I needed to. What Damien had said implied that there was something wrong and I had to know. I tried my hardest and my best to open my eyes from whatever state of darkness I was in. Slowly I could feel my lids opening. I closed and opened them a few times to adjust them to the lighting. She is gaining consciousness, Rome stated. I looked around the room. Rome was sitting next to me on a chair. Theo was still standing at the entrance of the door looking dumbfounded, while Damien was sitting next to the window. If we just had to mention Elias's name to wake her up, we should have done it sooner, Theo said as he came next to me. How are you feeling? I tried to speak, but my throat was very dry. I motioned for a glass for water, which Damien got for me within seconds. Rome helped me sit up and then handed me the water. I drank it slowly and then placed the glass on the table next to me. I'm good. I'm just happy that now I can tell you to stop playing your boring-ass movies and put on some real shit, I said while coughing a little. Thank you for reading the book to me, Rome. It was beautiful. Theo's eyes were widened while Rome smiled at me and Damien chuckled. Are you guys okay? Were you hurt? I asked, looking at them for any injuries. I don't think that you're in a state to worry about us, Amara. Damien smiled. But don't worry, we weren't hurt at all. What about Elias? I questioned. You said he was going crazy. We'll let him tell you that himself, Rome said, standing up. Wait here, we'll tell him you're awake. Well, I can't go anywhere anyway, I teased him and he smiled. Then they all left to get Elias. It was about 10 minutes later when the door flew open and I saw him. His eyes looked all around the room frantically with worry, and then they landed on me. As soon as I looked at them, a lone tear came out of my eyes. The bags under his eyes told me that he hadn't slept for days. The redness in them told me that he had cried. The longing in them told me that he wanted to see me as much as I wanted to see him. Then why didn't he come? He came inside and sat on the chair near the window. He just sat and stared at me for what felt like eternity. You know you can come and sit next to me, I said after a while. I don't know if I will be able to control myself if I sat so close to you, he immediately replied. Why didn't you visit? I asked. I wouldn't be able to control, he gave back the same reply. What are you trying to control? It frustrated me to get the same reply. He wasn't even elaborating or giving a reason. If I came to visit you when you were lying there lifeless, I wouldn't be able to control myself from destroying everything because I would feel even more helpless than I already did. He clenched his hands into a fist. And if I come near you right now, I won't be able to control myself from marking you so that everybody knows that if they even think of touching you, I will rip their heads off. He had so many emotions going through him. I just wanted to caress his face and tell him that I was okay. How did you know that it was intentional? The fire, I asked him. The large bruise in your stomach didn't go unnoticed, he growled, causing me to flinch a little from surprise. I had heard your scream, but as soon as I started going towards you, the fire started. I decided to go upstairs nonetheless, but those three stopped me and took me outside the house. I had to break free from them and everyone else who tried to stop me. I finally came inside and into the hallway when I heard you whisper my name and saw you. I could tell why the three and everyone else tried to stop him. The fire had probably started from the second floor, and they had presumed that I had already been captured by it. I was actually glad that they had stopped Elias. He could have gotten hurt immensely. I knew that the chandelier had fallen on my leg and that it was hurt badly, but I hadn't looked at it yet. Closing my eyes, I pulled the sheet from my legs. I gathered the courage to open them and look at the state of my legs. My left leg, okay, it only had a few cuts here and there. It was my right leg which was hurt very badly. The chandelier's glasses had left their cuts deep, and the fire hadn't forgotten to leave its endless mark on my leg which went up till my thigh. Biting my lip, as I processed it all in, I looked up at Elias. His eyes had seemed to follow mine, and he was also looking at the injury. He also looked up at me. Well, it doesn't look too pretty, does it? I asked him while smiling a little. He looked at my sad smile and stood up from his seat and came to sit next to me. I think you will still look as beautiful, he said while looking into my eyes. It will only show how brave you are, Amara. Your scars are and always will be beautiful. As he tried to lessen my insecurity, I could see the insecurities that his eyes spoke of. He was afraid that I was going to disappear, that I was going to drift into a sleep from which I would never wake up, that he wouldn't be able to save me. Don't worry, Elias. I am okay. I am alive, I said as I caressed his cheek. His eyes widened a little as they searched mine for assurance, as if asking what I said was true. I didn't know how else to assure him. So I did what I could to make his and my insecurities disappear. I kissed him. Chapter 11. Amara's POV. I kissed him. For a moment he didn't respond, probably because he was taken aback, but as soon as he came into his senses, he kissed me back with the same passion. I felt as if I was melting into a puddle. My legs felt weak enough, though I was on the bed, and I felt as if I would fall. One of his hands caressed my cheek while the other one pulled me closer. As we pulled apart, I breathed heavily, trying to control my body and my emotions. He cupped my chin and made me look at him. You are so beautiful, my moon, he said as his eyes flickered from black to normal. I couldn't help but smile like a fool when he said that, and he smiled back. There was a knock on the door, and Damien spoke from outside. Amara's parents have called. I looked at Elias in confusion. Did he tell them? I couldn't help but think how worried they must have been because of me. I had to tell them, Elias explained as he opened the door and took the phone from Theo. We couldn't keep it a secret from them. They're your parents. He handed me the phone and kissed my forehead. Talk to them. I'll go and get you something to eat. I talked to my parents for about an hour. It took a lot of convincing to make them believe that I was okay. My mom couldn't help but cry while my dad consoled her and me as well. He told me how brave I was to fight it and come back alive, and that he was very proud of me. I believed every word he said. After talking to my parents, Elias brought me sandwiches to eat, and soon after that I went to sleep. I woke up at around dinner time and could see 4 chairs in the room surrounding me. When did we become a cult? I wondered. Theo, Rome, Elias, and Damien came inside, each holding either food or plates and glasses. They brought in a table as well. We couldn't have dinner without you, Theo spoke, beaming with a smile. We also wanted to talk to you, Amara. But we shall converse about it after dinner, Rome said while fixing his glasses. I nodded. I was handed my dinner, which was spaghetti and meatballs. We all started eating and talked about those normal things a family talks about. Family. Yeah, family. They cleared the plates and then sat back on their seats, but this time Elias came and sat down next to me in the bed, letting me use him as a support to lean my head on. I know you just woke up, Amara, but we need to know this as soon as possible so that we can catch whoever did this to you, Damien began. Can you recall and tell us what happened that night? I gulped down. I did remember everything. If I could help them in catching the people who had started this, I would. We humans do need the respect from the werewolves, but killing each other isn't the way to go about it. I went to the very room I was told to go to. When I was looking out of the window, he spoke. It didn't take time for me to realize that he was a human. He confessed that himself. They are plotting to take revenge for all the bad things the werewolves have done to the humans. He wanted to kill all werewolves, starting with. I looked at Elias. Elias. He wanted to kill Elias by killing me. All four of them growled at this, but Elias's growl stood out the most. I could tell that he was very angry by the way he was breathing. In order to escape him, I fought him, but he was much stronger. When I was lying down there, I saw something else. There was another person there. I wasn't able to see who, but I did see the color of the clothes they were wearing. It was blood red. I finished. That is the same color of the gown Emily was wearing. Rome had observed it as well. It was also she who told Amara which room to go to. A while after Amara left, she also went to the kitchen to check something with the chefs. But why would she side up with the humans? She already despises them, 𝐊𝐢 said. We need to find that out, Elias replied. Rome. 𝐷𝐸𝐸, go find out what she has been doing lately. Who she has met, where she has gone. I want everything. As we were talking, 𝐊𝐢's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and froze a little, confusing me. He then glanced at me and then went out of the room to take the call. Weird, I thought to myself. Maybe it was one of his female friends. The next few days involved Rome and 𝐷𝐸𝐸 coming in and going out frequently as ordered by Elias, while the number of calls 𝐊𝐢 had been getting also increased. Whoever it was called him like in every 4 hours. He would also go out sometimes and hung out with me less. I was sitting in the living room, on the sofa, to which Elias had been kind enough to carry me to. I had talked to my parents a few hours ago. They were planning to come to visit me. I couldn't wait for it. As I was just lying there, 𝐊𝐢 came back from wherever he had gone to. 𝐊𝐢, where have you been going so much lately? Ladies, I asked in a playful manner. He went to the kitchen and took out a bottle from the fridge and drank it, completely ignoring me. 𝐊𝐢, have you gone bipolar? Why have you been avoiding me so much? I frowned a little. He shot me a look. I had never seen him act like this. Had I done something wrong? Amara, I am busy lately. I don't have time to play with you, he spoke up. I didn't reply to it. I didn't know what to reply, so I just lied there with my lips in a thin line. He came and sat down next to me. He was about to speak, but then Rome came in the house, along with Elias and 𝐷𝐸𝐸 slamming the door. There has been a revolt, 𝐷𝐸𝐸 spoke. Elias came and sat down on my other side and pulled me closer to him, holding me. Where? What happened? I looked at them concerned. First revolt in 30 years, it couldn't have been good. Oricos. It happened in Oricos, Rome said, while Elias's hold on me became a little tighter. So many emotions flew through me. I couldn't register a single of them. What would happen to my parents? They would be fine, right? I talked to them just a few hours ago. They sounded happy. They were going to come visit me, right? While all these thoughts ran into my mind, I ignored what 𝐊𝐢 whispered faintly. I'm sorry. Why? Chapter 12. Amara's POV. For the past month, my life has been a roller coaster of emotions. Happiness, excitement, sadness, anger, frustration have all been a part of it. Now, I'm just a mess. My parents haven't been heard from since the news of the revolt. We were able to talk to a few officials, and it has been calculated that a lot of lives have been lost. Both of humans and werewolves, but the number of werewolves who died is a lot higher. Currently, we are on our way to Oricos. None of us have said a word. Everyone seems to be contemplating on what this revolt could have meant. Was it just a one-time thing, or was it a spark to light a huge fire which was to consume us all? After stopping at very few spots, we arrived back home. I walked up to the porch of my house, but stopped when I heard my name being called. It was one of my neighbors, Kevin. Amara, he said with a sympathetic look on his eyes. You won't find your parents here. I burrowed my eyebrows in confusion, even though deep inside I knew what his words meant. I couldn't help but have a little hope. What do you mean? Where are they? We tried to help them to the hospital, but it was too late. I'm sorry, he apologized. I tried to speak, but my emotions ended up choking me a little. What happened? The humans came out of nowhere. It wasn't even the humans from this city, they were outsiders, he continued. Your mother had gone shopping at that time. She was just outside the house when one of them grabbed her from behind with a knife at her throat. Your father saw it and couldn't help but come to her rescue. He turned into his wolf. He got her off their grip. He tried to harm the humans as little as possible because he knew they're fragile. He shouldn't have done that. One of the women stabbed him with a silver knife right through his heart, and he fell down. When your mother saw that, she went straight for that pesky woman. She managed to bite her hand, but the others, his eyes were full of tears, and so were mine. I wanted to help Amara, I really did, but I was so scared for my own wife and kids. I patted his back and nodded at him. I know, it's okay. Being their child, I wasn't able to help them myself. I whispered the last part. Do you know where they are? The Alpha asked all the dead bodies to be buried as soon as possible. It was enough to tell me where they were. As I started walking towards the car, trying to hide my emotions as much as I could and limping a little because my injuries hadn't been fully healed, Elias lifted me from behind and carried me to the car. Placing me in the passenger's seat, he turned to the others. I'll take her. You know what you guys need to do, Elias spoke. He didn't speak the entire ride. I didn't either, except for the times when I had to tell him the directions. When we reached there, he parked the car near the gate of the graveyard. You should spend some time with them, he said, leaning against the door of the car. Do you want me to carry you there? I shook my head. I'll be fine. As I walked towards the graves, looking for their names in each one, I could feel my chest growing heavier and heavier. It finally sunk when I saw them, their names and photos engraved on it. Dad, I spoke as I fell on my knees. Dad, your bunny is here. Won't you give me my welcome back hug? I slowly touched his grave and the tears started dripping down from my eyes. I looked over to Mom's grave. Mom, weren't you both supposed to visit me? This is not how I imagined it, shaking my head. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for not being there. I should have. I clutched onto my shirt as my chest began to hurt while my cries became louder. Two hands came from behind me and hugged me, pulling me towards him. I knew it was him. It only made my cries louder. He turned me towards him and hugged me tightly. I heard your cries. You sounded in so much pain I couldn't stay away, he explained. You can cry as much as you want to, but just let me be here for you. I nodded as I clutched onto his shirt tightly, and we stayed there like that for what seemed like forever. Unknown's POV. She looks so miserable, she spoke from beside me with mocking sympathy. Makes me just want to go to her and hug her neck tightly until she joins her parents in hell. I chuckled at her words. I apologize, but I can't let you do that. At least not yet. I looked at Elias and her. If only they knew what was yet to come. This was just the beginning and the worst was yet to come. I would make them suffer slowly and make him fall. After his fall, it would be very, very easy to take over the werewolves. To be honest, I didn't want to make Amara suffer, her being a fellow human and shit, but it was her fault for being his mate. I couldn't help but smirk when I thought about how I would torture her when she would be in my hands. How much would I enjoy seeing the look on Elias's face? Call him now. Tell him it'll be time soon, very soon, I ordered her. Already she gave a sinister smile. Time flies so fast. I cupped her chin and lifted her head towards me. Indeed, giving her the aggressive kiss, I spoke again. It's time to introduce some new pawns. Chapter 13. Amara's POV. I was feeling helpless. Elias wouldn't let me help them. He wouldn't let me search for those who murdered my parents. I got that he thinks I am not stable enough. Maybe I am not, but it is something I want to do, something I need to do. Since they wouldn't let me go on the search, I decided to go to my house, my parents' house. Elias had gone out for business and others were busy, so I went alone. Going inside the house reminded me of endless memories. I went to the kitchen, remembering how we laughed while cooking and eating together. Then, turning away, I went to the living room, remembering all the times we argued on which movie we would watch on the TV. I finally made up the courage to go to their room. Even though I am not a werewolf, as soon as I opened the door, their scents hit me, the The sense of familiarity hits me, and it automatically brought tears to my eyes. The room was neat and clean, reminding me of my mom. She was a clean freak. Inside the bedroom, my father had a small study table. He never let me open the top drawer cabinet. He would say that I would know when I have to open them. I had a feeling the time was now. When I opened it, there was a piece of paper, just a half-torn piece of paper. It made me wonder why father would keep it from me. I picked it up and turned it, revealing the following words written in my father's handwriting. My precious bunny. If you find this, then your mother and I probably aren't around to accompany you there ourselves. I apologize, my princess. You know how I always told you that you were special? You are very special, my love. I cannot explain it in the letter, for if anyone else finds it, they will know the secret. I need you to go somewhere, to go to someone who can explain it to you in person. She will tell you everything you need to know. Near the forest, there is a small nursery. She lives there in a cottage. Go find her, Bunny. We will always be watching over you. We love you. Always in your memories, but your dad. A lone tear dropped on the piece of paper, bringing my attention back. I had to go to the address. I had to know the answers to the questions this letter had left me with. I couldn't tell Elias. He would insist on going there with me. I wanted to find the answers myself, and then I would tell him. I would tell them. I messaged Elias that I would be going to a friend's, and he replied with an okay, and after that, I took off for the nursery. I knew which lady he was talking about. She was a regular customer in our bakery, and would give us homemade chocolates every few months. I was filled with curiosity and anxiety as I neared the nursery. I could see the old lady at the door. I have been expecting you, she said. I looked at her in confusion, but she ignored me and started walking towards her cottage, gesturing for me to follow. I followed her with a little uneasiness, but I knew she would mean no harm. My dad had known her. She sat down on one of the chairs and pointed at the sofa, asking me to do the same. I sat down and opened my mouth to speak, but she spoke before me. I know you must have a lot of questions. I shall answer them eventually, but you have to listen to me first. She looked at me. I nodded, and she smiled. You know about werewolves? Well, you should also know that werewolves aren't the only supernatural species. There are many others. I belong to the ones known as witches. You must have heard of us, even though most of us have gone into hiding, she said, and I nodded again. My father wrote in the letter that I was special. What did he mean? I asked her. As you know, Dan and Kiara weren't your real parents. The speciality he was talking about is what you got from your real parents. I gulped, and she continued. You are a result of the mating of a human witch and a werewolf, ones who weren't even destined to be mates, Amara. How was I born? If they weren't even mates, werewolves' mate bond prevents them from seeding anyone except from their mates, so me being born was practically impossible. The human witch made it possible. She had immense powers, and she used a very powerful spell in order to make it possible. Now, if you were the result of two true mates, you would have been born a werewolf or a witch depending upon the power of the mates. But since nature itself doesn't support your birth, you are stuck between the two, she explained. You contain immense power, which is very hard to control. I have been doing it for years, I know. For years, I asked, raising an eyebrow. Every few months, I would give you some chocolates. They contained rosewood crystals. They have so far been successful enough to control the beast inside, she said. But one wrong herb could trigger and awaken the sleeping disaster. If my real mother went through so much to give birth to me, why did she leave me? She had gone against nature for my birth. Why would she abandon me? That is for your mother to answer, she replied. We shall talk more after I prepare some tea. Would you be kind enough to help me? I nodded as I got up from the sofa and followed her to the kitchen. She prepared the kettle and put some tea leaves and turned to me. Would you be a sweetheart and go to the nursery and bring some rosewood crystals for me? I think you should have some. They are green with blue dots on them. She then turned her attention towards the cake she had been preparing. I immediately went to the nursery to find different varieties of herbs and plants. I found two similar plants which resembled the herb she had mentioned. One had thorns, while the other didn't. Assuming both of them belonged to the same group, I took 4 leaves from the latter and went back into the cottage. Put the leaves in the tea. I will go get the cups, the old lady said with her back turned towards me. I did as ordered and mixed the tea together while contemplating what had been told to me today. Will Elias accept me for who I am? He probably will, right? Maybe I am overthinking things. When would I find the right timing to tell them? The tea was ready in the next 5 minutes, and we were back sitting where we had been before. I sipped the tea. It was delicious. So, can I ask you, I coughed a little, so I drank some more tea to calm my throat. I started coughing more and more. Amara, are you all right? The old lady asked with genuine concern. I spoke between my coughs. Her eyes widened as she realized something. She sipped the tea. This isn't rosewood crystal, she spoke horrified. You picked the wrong herb, Amara. That was all I heard until my vision became red and my mind was full of one word. Revenge. And Chapter 14. Guess who brought an early update? It's 𝐊𝐥𝐻. Wonderful new cover by 𝐊𝐿𝐻𝐼 2211. Dedicated to 𝐊𝐿𝐻13. Thank you for your awesome support. Since Amara isn't the one in control, we will be viewing most of the part of this chapter from a third person's POV. Third person's POV. The horror in the old witch's eyes wasn't enough to signify how afraid she really was. Amara was still sitting on the couch, her appearance still the same, but the red glow in her eyes said otherwise. The stillness in the room was only making it worse. Amara, stuttered the witch. Amara looked up at her and smiled a very unwelcoming smile. I've been waiting to meet you, waiting to meet the one who wasn't allowing me to emerge. She slowly got up, making the witch get up from her seat as well. I only did it to help Amara, she spoke. The power is too strong for her to. That isn't for you to decide, Amara said while slowly walking towards the witch. I was only trying to help. Amara, the witch, matched her steps, walking backwards until she hit a wall. Amara followed her steps until she was right in front of her. One of her hand grabbed the witch's throat, pressing it lightly, causing the witch to gasp. Don't worry, I am not going to kill you, Amara smirked. Since you are so keen to help Amara, why don't you help me? I am going to do what Amara wants the most. I am not asking you. Her grip tightened over the neck. What do you want? The witch coughed. I need you to find someone for me. The forest was quiet with occasional buzzes and sounds of insects. A man was sitting there, waiting for his subordinates to report. He had been promoted after the fire incident and had been given responsibility of the group which had led the revolt in Oricos. They were checking up on the damages, making sure anyone who knew about their involvement was taken care of. He laid his head against the tree, closing his eyes, trying to rest, but a sudden crushing of leaves brought his attention to his surroundings. Were his subordinates back already? He looked around, trying to comprehend where the sound could have come from. To his surprise, nothing was there. He laid back again to rest. His eyes were closed, but his senses were still working, which told him that someone was right in front of him. This caused him to immediately open his eyes. She was right in front of him, looking down at him in disgust. The girl from the castle, the one who had insulted him. Her foolishness caused him to smirk. Here to take revenge for your parents, he spoke as he got up lazily, brushing the dust off his pants. Oh, I'll make sure to do that, she replied with the same voice, but with a different aura, causing him to look up and register the change in the color of her eyes. But before that, I need you to tell me who you work for. He chuckled. Do you think those contact lenses scare me? I mean, they look good and everything, but they won't get anything out from me. I'll do you a favor and let you go. Boss doesn't need you. At least not yet. He started walking away from her while waving back at her. Big mistake. With an incomprehensible speed, Amara grabbed the waving hand, crushing it slowly, causing the man to scream in agony as he tried to fight it with the other hand, but it was in vain. I didn't know you were this weak. Anyway, I don't like waiting for my answers. Well, honey, looks like you'll have to wait some more, spoke another voice from behind her. The lucky Bastd's subordinates had finally arrived, causing him to half laugh and half cry because Amara was still crushing his hand. There were around 10 men and one Amara. I really didn't want to shift today, she pushed the man, causing him to fall. This is really gonna hurt, Amara, she said to herself. The cracking of her bones were heard along with a scream until a wolf was in front of them. It was unlike any other wolf they would ever get to see. Her fur was shades of black which lightened as it neared her tail, which was also black with hints of gray in them. She was larger than female wolves and gave competition to the males. But it was her eyes that differed the most. The red color in them depicted the fire that was going through her. The men backed away a little, causing the subordinate's smirk to falter a little. She didn't waste her time in playing with them. She had better things to do. She went for the smirking one first, ripping his head off in one blow. Then she grabbed another guy, crushing his bones within her grip, and threw him at 2 others. One of the remaining men pushed a silver knife up her legs only for her to take it off by her teeth and slit his throat with the same knife. Soon all 10 of them were lying dead. Their blood almost created a river. She turned back into her human form, grabbing one of the men's shirt and putting it over her while walking towards the man who was still holding his hand, looking at the scene in horror. With the silver knife from before, she made a small slit on his throat. "I am going to kill you anyway. But I will make it faster, if you tell me what I want to know," her voice telling him that she wasn't joking. "We have never met the boss. We only get commands through the phone," he spoke in between his screams, which were caused by the slit, which was increasing word by word. "So, you're telling me you're useless and I should torture you till death," she smiled. "I can't tell you who he is, but I can tell you where the next revolt will take place." Elias's POV. "I was with Rome and Damien with a few people of the town when the witch came running to us. She told us what had happened with Amara and what she had unleashed by a small mistake. We immediately went to search for her. She could cause a havoc any time now. She could hurt a lot of people. But most importantly, she could hurt herself. Theo wasn't with us to begin with, so we texted him about her being loose. I don't know what is up with him these days. He has been acting weird. We had decided to search in the forest in different directions and mind-linked the others when we found her. Handling her alone would not be possible at the moment. Heck, I don't know if she would even recognize me. All I knew was that I needed her in my arms, safe and sound." Amara's POV. "I finally gained back consciousness. My body hurt so much that I couldn't stand up at all. I was just sitting in the middle of the forest with blood and bodies surrounding me. What had I done? Amara, I jumped back, hearing my name and looking in the direction from which the voice came. Theo, she spoke in desperation. Theo walked towards her, crouching in her level. What happened? Theo, I don't remember anything, but I think I have an idea of what happened. I'll explain everything, she said, clutching onto his shoulders for support. But first take me back home, please. I need Elias, I need him right now. I will be taking you, Amara. Theo smiled. But it won't be home, the smile soon turning sinister. Chapter 15. Almost at 5,000 reads? Coughs, am I famous yet? Amara's POV. Theo, what are you saying? I burrowed my eyebrows in confusion. I apologize, Amara, but the boss really wants to see you, Theo replied as he started to pick me up. I resisted and tried to punch him and get out of his grip, but the shifting had weakened my body immensely. Theo, I see that you found her. A voice caught both of our attention and caused us to look its way. It was Elias. Put her down. I don't want to hurt you, but I will if I have to. We won't resist either. Rome and Damien came from two different directions. The three had surrounded him. Theo looked at them and chuckled. He then looked down at me and whispered, "Maybe not today, Amara." He threw me towards Elias, catching the three of them off guard, and ran. Rome and Damien went after him, while Elias caught me before I landed on the hard ground. He pulled me closer in his embrace, wrapping his arms around me tightly, and I did the same. "You're safe, my moon. You're safe," he whispered. Rome and Damien appeared back eventually with Theo nowhere to be seen. I knew he could outrun them. He was the fastest amongst them. He got away, Damien said with anger evident in his voice. I think I know where we'll find him next, I coughed, causing them to turn their heads towards me. The city of Kronos. That's where the next riot will take place. Before leaving for Kronos, I apologized to the old lady, whose name I learnt was Kiara. Kiara explained that I could control magic if I concentrated enough, but it will be hard to accomplish, and that I could contact her anytime I needed her. I had a feeling that I would require it very soon. I couldn't remember how I murdered all those people. All I could remember was that I had to go to Kronos and stop the revolt from happening, which would take place within a week. It took us 2 days to reach Kronos, leaving us with 5 days, 5 days within which anything could happen. We split into groups, Elias and I being one while Rome and Damien being the other. Both of them decided to ask around from different gangs while we decided to ask from the common people. We went to the local market, pretending to be interested in purchasing. "How much are those apples for?" I inquired from one of the shopkeepers. "One is for 10 𝐻𝐿, she replied. "You can taste some if you want," she said, handing 2 pieces to us. We thanked her and ate it. "You don't look like you're from here." "We come from Oricos," Elias answered. Oh, I was devastated on learning what happened there. One of my friend's aunt's cousin used to live there. "What a pity," she exclaimed. "It makes it think it can happen anywhere now." Indeed it was. "But I don't think it will happen here," I replied. "Since you're new here, let me tell you, there is a group arising. The Alpha had tried to control it, but apparently they threatened to kill his family. I feel like they could attack any time." And that was like a trigger. Just as she said that, we heard a scream. We could see all of them, humans with guns and silver knives in their hands. They started going inside houses, grabbing and pulling the people living in them outside, shooting them, stabbing them. They didn't care whether they were humans or not. This didn't look like a revolt which was to help the humans. "Elias, we need to stop them," I turned towards him, feeling a similar overwhelming power burning inside me. He nodded, and as if on cue, Rome and Damien were by our side. "Don't leave us behind," Damien commented. We ran in different directions. Ever since I turned into whatever I was, I could mind-link the others. By others I meant any werewolf. I don't know how, but I could. Theo had been blocking me somehow, though. Damien turned into his wolf and attacked the intruders of peace. Rome covered him by killing anyone who dared to attack him. Elias pulled back anyone who tried to get into the houses and decimated them. There was a child in the middle of the road, crying at the horrifying scene in front of him. In order to protect him, his mother had shifted into a wolf, but wasn't very good at defending herself. Keep in mind that most of the werewolves living in the cities were untrained, since there had been peace for so long. The Council of Elders had thought that only warriors would be the one who will be trained in combat. That was why it was so easy for these humans to kill them. She had already been beaten enough and was lying down in front of her son, who was crying while clutching onto her fur. One of the revolters approached them with a knife. "Enough, you coward," I said, causing him to turn while I took his knife from him and slayed it through his heart. Another struck his knife through my shoulder, causing me to groan, but I pulled it towards me more, causing him to be pulled along with it, and stabbed him with the same knife. Killing didn't make me happy. It made me feel guilty and dirty, yet I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't control my magic, and God knows if I used it, I would end up killing all of us. Long time no see, Amara. Theo's voice spoke in my head, making me snarl. "Where are you?" "Too scared to fight," I replied. "Look around, Amara, and you might just find me," he taunted. "You see, I'm busy killing all those idiots you sent. Come here and I'll do the same with you," I growled. "What happened, Theo?" "Theo. The FK happened. You'll know soon enough," and with that I was cut off the mind link yet again. There were endless of them. If you killed one, 3 more would appear. We were in an endless fight. It wasn't only us 4 defending, others had joined when they saw us as well, aiding us as much as they could. "I think we have played enough. The archers get ready to fire," boomed Theo's voice from somewhere. Hundreds of arrows, coated with probably silver and wolfsbane, were shot in the air, towards us. A cloaked body stood in front of me, and as it raised its hand, all the arrows stopped mid-air. "Go back to those who shot you," the voice was that of a female's. The arrows turned and went back with the same speed towards the archers, and we could hear their cries. Elias, Rome and Damien came and stood beside me. The cloaked body turned towards us. "Who are you?" I asked. She removed the hood, revealing her face. "Your mother." "Amara, I'm your mother." Chapter 16. Amara's POV. "My mother," I stuttered. She stepped forward and cupped my cheeks. "You have grown up into such a beautiful woman, my child." She then removed her hands from my cheeks and held my hands gently while patting them. "I know you have a lot of questions and I would love to answer them, but honestly, you all look like a mess and awfully hungry after the fight. Why don't we go to my house and talk?" We all were speechless, so we all answered by nodding our heads. A smile graced her face, and then she started walking, motioning for us to follow. We finally reached her house, and she led us to the kitchen. "Why don't you boys go and freshen up? Amara can help me fix you with some lunch." Rome and Damien complied immediately, while Elias started leaving hesitantly, looking at me as if asking me whether I was okay. I gave him a reassuring smile and he smiled back. When he also retreated to his room, I decided to bombard my mother with questions. "How did you know I was here?" I questioned her. "My town was in danger, so I decided to help. While I was observing the fight, I saw you ... I can never forget your red eyes." "You had them when you were born," she answered while giving me a knife to cut some tomatoes. I couldn't see my child in trouble. "You didn't think I would be in trouble when you left me," I snapped. She gave me a sad smile. "I couldn't do anything else, and I mean it. I had no other choice." She looked out of the window as if recalling a sad yet happy memory. "Your father and I were in love, but we weren't mates. So our relationship was itself considered a sin. We wanted a child of our own, and it made us extremely sad that we couldn't produce one because we weren't mates. Love and mates has nothing to do with each other. As you know, I was a witch. Hence I decided to use my powers to make myself able to receive his seed, and you were born." She looked at me. "But the pea people, they weren't happy. They started hunting us down. Your father died protecting us." A tear slipped down her cheeks and my heart was feeling very heavy. "They were following me as well. In order to protect you, I had to get you away from me." "I don't know what to say," I managed to reply. "I'm sorry for what I said earlier." "Don't worry. You have the right to say that." She smiled. "During the fight, I saw that you didn't use your magical powers. What happened?" "I only recently discovered about ... myself. I don't know how to control them." I gave her a sheepish smile. "I'd love to teach you," she spoke with a glint in her eyes. "Will you let me teach you?" I couldn't say no. "Great. We shall start tomorrow then," and then we continued preparing the food, warning some mild hot stuff below. It's not too much but not too less either. If you refrain from reading such parts, then you can skip to the end of the chapter. I'll explain what happened there in one line. After a delicious lunch, I went back into my room. Well, mine and Elias's. It was because Mother had 3 rooms. Rome and Damien shared one while Elias and I shared the other. Some of the citizens had come outside the house to thank us. Rome, Damien and Elias had gone downstairs to meet them. As much as I appreciated their gesture, I am really awkward socially, so I decided to stay back. Watching from the window, I could see that most of the citizens who had come to thank us were girls. Girls of my age. I could see Elias surrounded by a dozen of them. One of them thanked Elias and then kissed him on his cheek. I narrowed my eyes to be able to see better. I couldn't help but feel jealous. With a pout, I drew the window curtains and sat on the bed huffing. After around half an hour, Elias opened the bedroom door. Before he could come in completely, I got up from the bed, walked towards him and wrapped my arms around his waist while burying my face on his chest. "Amara? What happened, my moon?" Loose came out my words. "I'm sorry. I don't speak that language," he chuckled. I removed my face from his chest and looked up at him. "I'm being jealous." He looked confused, but then realization hit him, causing him to laugh louder. "Nothing to be jealous of," he said as he caressed me cheek. "I shall ask other men to kiss my cheek as well," then I teased him. He tried to hold me tightly close to him when I said that, but before he could do it, I backed up, sticking out my tongue. "No, you can't do that." He took a step towards me and I stepped back. "So not cheek. How about Lee?" I teased further, causing him to take multiple steps forward and me to take steps backward until I tripped and fell on the bed. I moved to get up, but before I could, Elias towered my body, his hands on the bed near my waist while one of his legs was in between mine, his face infinitely close to mine. I had to take deep breaths while looking into his eyes. "Would you like to tease further?" he asked. "I think I'm done for today," I gulped. "Good," he replied as he started getting off the bed, but I grabbed his collar before he could. "Where do you think you're going?" I said while crashing my lips into his. He deepened the kiss as his arms wrapped around my waist and his body came forward until it touched mine. I wrapped my arms around his neck and battled his tongue for dominance. Both of us didn't back down until he finally gave in. We both pulled back breathless, arms still wrapped around each other. "Elias, Elias, I want us to mark each other, I told him. Is it because you're still jealous? He asked. I laughed. No, you silly. I have heard that marking strengthens the bond between us and our wolves more. I want to do that. We have a war coming, I feel it. If we mark each other, we will be able to sense when the other is in danger. The features on his face dropped. Is that why? That's the reason. I shook my head. There is another very important reason. Most important one, I think. What'd he question? The reason is that I gave a peck on his lips. I love you. He gave me a big goofy smile. I love you too. He opened the first few buttons of his shirt and then slid down one of the sleeves, exposing his neck to me. I gave him a confused look. I want you to mark me first, my moon. It would be an honor, he said while tilting his head sideways, completely exposed to me. I couldn't help but smile and feel proud of him. I could never wish for a better mate. I kissed him once more and then started pressing kisses from his jawline to his neck. His scent wanted the wolf in me to come out completely. I searched the part of the collarbone where his scent was the most prominent by grazing my canines slowly and licking it, causing him to give out a moan. Stop teasing me, Amara, he groaned. I smirked, seeing the effect I have on him. I finally found the spot and dug my canines deep inside it while his grip on my waist tightened. I placed a final kiss on the spot and then retreated, happy with the mark that lay on him. My turn, he moved my body closer to him, as close as he could. I shall make you suffer as well for all the teasing, he whispered huskily into my ears, placing a kiss just underneath them and slowly removing the strap of my shirt. My hands gripped onto his shirt. He then started placing wet kisses onto my neck, causing my grip on his shirt to tighten as I tried to suppress my moans. His tongue traced its way along my collarbone until it circled one stop. This, he said, inhaling my scent. I love all of you. But this part, he kissed it, causing me to finally moan. Your scent here, I'll mix it with mine, he said as he dug his canines into me. I bit my lips from the pain until he finally looked his canines out. I can't wait till everyone sees that I'm yours and you're mine. We both smiled and laid down next to each other, taking in the new things and feelings the bond was introducing into us. I could say that we were happy. At that moment, it was just us. Not the past, neither the future. We tried living in the present, tried to forget our worries. After all that had happened, we needed each other even more. Marking each other made us understand that. I didn't regret it. I loved every piece of it. I loved every piece of him. Chapter 17. Lion has reached 20,000 reads and 1,000 likes. Are you guys sure you're reading the correct book? If you guys are interested in K-pop, you guys should check out the new song by the queens above. Amara's POV. I could see myself standing in a room. It was dimly lit, but there were 3 other people apart from me. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see 2 of them. One of them was Emily and the other was Theo. The third one was a blur, as if it didn't want me to see who it was. The blurred figure was sitting on a chair while Theo and Emily were standing with their arms crossed. Through what I could see, it looked as if they were arguing about something. The figure suddenly stood up and started walking towards me until it was standing right in front of me. I still couldn't see the face, but somehow the picture of a smirk came into my mind as the figure put their hands around my neck, grabbing it tightly. Then came a voice. Amara. Mother? I thought to myself while looking at the figure. Amara, wake up. Huh? And just then the figure squeezed my neck. I finally jolted up from the dream while covered in sweat. Amara, are you okay? My mother asked, concerned. Just a bad dream. I brushed it off and gave her a smile. I looked around to see where Elias was. The 3 have gone out, she answered, reading my mind. Come on, freshen up and have breakfast. We have a class to begin soon, she said, causing me to remember that she was going to teach me some magic today. I freshened up and we had a quick breakfast. She told me that magic wasn't something that could be learnt in a day. It cannot be taught by anyone. One has to learn about the magic inside them themselves. All that she would help me do is help me concentrate my power. For that, we went into a clearing in the forest located just outside the city. I sat down next to the lake as commanded. She asked me to look at my own reflection, concentrate on it, and try to control the water. I sat down there looking at my own self for about 3 hours until a frown found its way to my face. "This isn't working," I said, turning towards her. "It isn't something that is going to happen within a day. It would be surprising if you are able to do it within a week. Come on now." I turned back sighing while looking at my reflection. If only it was Elias's reflection instead. Cheesy as FK, Amara. Elias's voice circled in my head. "Shut up and tell me, did you find something?" I replied. "Yes, we did. We'll tell you when we come back. Now concentrate, my sweet." With that, I stayed there looking at my reflection until the sun decided to set. On reaching back home, we were greeted by Elias, Rome, and Damien. "Come on, let's sit in the living room and discuss," my mother suggested while motioning for us to move to the room. We all sat down. We had informed some trusted people of the werewolf community Damien started. They helped us gather some information. Apparently, it's not only humans who are part of the revolt. Some werewolves are also betraying their own kind for higher power and fake promises. This plan isn't recent. It had been started years ago. They all went underground to prepare for this a long time ago. "Did you find anything about the next attack?" I asked. "No, but we are trying to narrow it down to some cities," Rome replied. "Maybe we could use your mother's magic," Damien suggested. "My magic cannot predict what is going to happen, but I shall try to find a way to get control one of the enemies. The problem is, I don't know any of them," she sighed. "I do, Emily," I replied, causing others to look at me. "Are you sure that she is a part of this?" Amara Elias questioned. "It's my gut feeling, and what my dream showed, I told them." "Do you have any pictures of her and any of her belongings?" Mother asked Damien. "Yeah, come. We'll show you." Rome lead the way until they all were out of the room. So Elias whispered as he pulled me closer to him. "How did your practice session go?" "Couldn't do it," I pouted. With his hand, he removed a strand of hair from my face. "I believe in you. You'll be able to do it," he smiled, causing me to smile back. The next few days comprised of my mother helping the three of them to get more leads while I went to the clearing every day. It had been almost a week and I was there again, at the clearing, concentrating at my reflection and the water as much as I could. The sun was about to set. I decided to give it a last try before going home for today. And then the miracle happened. The water started moving. A few droplets defied gravity and started floating in the air until they were right in front of me. It was finally working. I couldn't be happier. Then I heard a clap which caused me to turn around immediately. "Well done." Amara, a man dressed up in a loose shirt and jeans, came from behind the trees. His hair rested on his shoulders, his face finely defined as if God took his time to curve the creature. His eyes were like a constellation, the color of the night sky with specks of white on them. It felt weird. I was attracted to him and I couldn't understand why. I knew Elias could feel what I felt, and he would be feeling this as well. It felt like I was cheating. Who was he? "Who am I?" He smiled as he took his steps towards me. "I am no by many names, but by the wrong gender. Well, I have never bothered to correct them." I looked at him confused. What was he talking about? "You know, the names the werewolves and the humans gave me. Moon goddess, Artemis, Luna." He shook his head. Bowing down, he let out the words which I couldn't believe I was really hearing. "Well, I am the moon god. And I have been waiting to meet you, Amara." Chapter 18. Amara's POV. The moon god, I questioned, not believing what I had just heard. And what would be the reason for the moon god to grace me with his presence? Raising an eyebrow, he moved a few steps closer. But I did not step back from my spot either. "You're fighting against a war that has been going on for hundreds of years. A war that I had wanted to stop for long, but I couldn't. Now that I see a ray of hope, I am here. Don't misunderstand me, you're not the chosen one or anything, but I do see a slight possibility of peace." "Aren't you a god? Why don't you just tell us who is behind this and we'll end this once and for all?" I replied. "I may be a god, but even I do not play with fate," he smiled. "I can warn you about something, though." His expressions turned serious. "Someone who seems close to you might betray you." "Theo?" We've already found out about that. I told him, questioning whether he really knew anything. Ah, Theo, he said, seemingly lost in his thoughts. Before he could open his mouth, Elias, 𝐻𝐸, Damien, and my mother appeared. Saying that Elias looked a little angry would be a lie. He looked furious as he walked towards us. I could understand why. The bond between us had told him about my attraction towards the moon god. He stood in front of me, blocking my view completely. Who are you? Elias, isn't it? Nice to meet you. You did well in the last war, even though I didn't support it, the moon god replied. I could tell that Elias was confused, but he didn't let it show. I asked you something. Who are you? A little angry about Amara's attraction towards me, are we? I don't think you are in a place to be mad about it. Your attraction towards me is stronger than hers, he replied, causing me to laugh, which I tried to cover with a cough. Embarrassed, Elias stepped to my side and didn't speak a word. So now that you know that we all are somehow attracted to you, would you be kind enough to give your introduction, Damien asked. Oh yes, of course. Don't worry, my children, you are attracted to me because I am your creator. In other words, I am the moon god, he said in the same tone with which he had told me. Aren't you supposed to be a lady, 𝐻𝐸 asked. No, I am not a lady, he frowned. Anyway, this is not what I am here for. What I am here for is to help you guys predict where the next attack would be. We've already discovered that. It's the city devoted to you. The ancient city of Ephesus. My mother stepped in front. So all the information that you provided or wanted to provide to us is what we already know, I said, scratching the back of his head. He replied. No, it isn't. I suggest you to look for a weapon. The weapon to kill the person who is behind all of this. Where can we find it? My mother asked before I could. It's here. It is in this city. I suggest you to go look for an old man named Tristan. He will be able to help you, 𝐻𝐸. Damien and my mother set off to look for him after he said that. Ah, you both marked each other, he said, noticing our necks. I have to say, I am a little disappointed. I didn't think you both would give in to the bond. Give in to the bond? I asked him. I don't think we gave in to the bond. You both certainly did. I am sorry to tell you this, but the love you both are feeling is between the wolves. What your humans' counterparts are feeling is probably in the stage of friendship, he said, while putting one hand on Elias's shoulder and the other on mine. It is nothing to be ashamed of. You did what I had invented the bond for. How do we differ the love between our humans and our wolves? Elias questioned. If your humans truly loved each other, you wouldn't have been attracted to me in the first place. If you feel more attracted towards me, then it means you are more animalistic than you are a human. And again, there is nothing wrong with that either. He replied. I don't mean to worry you both. What I mean to say is, give some time to each other's humans. Let them bond as well. Don't lose your humans because of the war. You need them just as much. With that, he drifted away, smiling, leaving Elias and I not quite alone but with the discovery that we had just made. Elias turned to me. Amara, I'm sorry. I know you wanted exactly what he said, and I stopped him from speaking by putting my finger on his lips. Elias, it's not your fault. Both of us wanted to mark each other, and to me it wasn't a mistake to begin with. Like he said, our werewolves are in love with each other, and with love comes protection. They wanted to protect each other, and I am not against that at all. I don't think my human is either, I smiled. And then we decided to do exactly what the moon god had advised. We decided to let our humans bond. Chapter 19. Amara's POV. The next week consisted of Damien, 𝐻𝐸, and my mother going out in search for the weapon, while Elias accompanied me to the forest where I practiced new spells which mother would ask me to. Day by day, I was getting better, and day by day, Elias and I were growing closer. Even during the chaos, we made sure to go out for our daily night strolls with our hands held together. But we had 5 days until the revolt when we finally found the weapon. You'd think that it would be something grand, but it was just an ordinary wooden stake. It made me wonder if we could really use it to kill our enemy. Mother had decided to keep the wooden stake with herself because she would be the least suspected one, and I agreed. It was a 3-day ride, and there was no time to waste. We all immediately set off, and on our way, talked to a few people who we thought could give us some information. The city of Ephesus would be a big target. It was direct attack to the deity of werewolves, and they wouldn't take it lightly. A few of them already were looking for reasons to remove humans from this world as a whole, and this would give them a reason to. This could possibly trigger a war which all of us wanted to avoid. As soon as we reached the city, we all went in different directions in order to learn about anything that could give us a hint. The direction in which I left led me to which looked like more of the uninhabited part of the city. There were still a few houses and shops, but the streets were quite empty. Every few seconds I felt like someone was watching me from the windows, so I was on full alert. There weren't many people I could talk to, and the ones I did talk to didn't think to know much about the topic. As I was walking, a bar came into the view. It seemed to be the only lively place in this secluded part of the city, so I decided to go in. The bell of the bar jingled when I entered, causing people to draw their attention towards me. The crowd were mostly men apart from the waitresses, and a few ladies here and there. I headed to the counter and took a seat beside two men who seemed very indulged in their conversation. I ordered a root beer and tried to listen in their conversation. I could make out a few words such as werewolves, humans, winning. And on hearing them, I concluded that this was the right place. Taking a sip of the drink, I decided to initiate a conversation. "Hello, gentlemen," I spoke, drawing their attention. "I'm quite new here, and I'm sorry I couldn't help but listen what you guys were talking about. I actually come from the city of Kronos. I had to move ever since the revolt took place. It doesn't feel as safe there as it does here." "I wouldn't be saying that," Missy, one of them, replied. "Your choice of city might not be very reliable. I believe Kronos is much more safer than Ephesus right now." Why do you say that?" My words halted due to a sudden wave of dizziness. Many people have been going missing. You wouldn't notice that in the other parts of the town, but since the population is scanty here, you can tell. We don't know if it's by choice or if it's the dog people, but we sure sleep with a gun beside us at night," spoke the other man softly. "We think that someone out there is planning something, and whatever it is against the two species. Being humans, we don't have much chance, but we won't be afraid to give it our best." I didn't know if I should have been proud of them for sticking up for themselves or be sad for the fact that people could be persuaded against each other so easily. My dilemma was broken was the sound of the doorbell jingling once again, causing me to look towards the doorway. The anger inside me immediately boiled. "Well, Amara, do you want to come out willingly and have a chat? Or do you want me to ask my minions to kill every single one of these pathetic people in front of you and then drag you out of here?" In my opinion, I would choose the first one, but the second one seems tempting as well. Theo stood at the entrance with a few of his minions behind him. On sniffing, I could tell that there were a lot more of them outside. Looking around me, I could see fear in the eyes of the people. Finishing my drink, I stood up and said goodbye to the men beside me. My vision was blurring, but I managed to walk outside the bar. As I had suspected, there were around 10 more men outside. I tried to contact the others through the mind link, but for some reason I was unable to. On hearing his footsteps, I turned to face him. Out of the corner of my eyes, I could see the blurry image of people in the bar poking their faces out of the window to see what was happening. "It's time for you to accompany me, Amara. The boss wants to see you," Theo spoke. "I would play with you, but there isn't much time to waste. I do hope that you enjoyed the drink." As soon as I heard the words, I comprehended what was going on. I moved forward to attack him, but my steps halted, and I soon succumbed into the darkness. I could feel the dirt on the floor that I was lying on. The sticking smell of wherever I was didn't fail to reach my nose. I tried to regain my vision. My eyes blinked a few times, and I was finally able to see the dungeon that I lay in. Surrounded walls covered fully in moss, and a cell door. I tried to sit up, but felt immense pain in my whole body, especially my legs. I turned my head down slightly to take a look. I was covered in blood, my blood. There were marks of whips here and there, and cuts by knives of several sizes. These cowards had hurt me when I was out. A cough drew my attention towards the cell door. There stood Theo waving with something in his hand, causing my eyes to widen. It was the weapon. "Theo, I gotcha. Amara, well done. Do you want me to clap?" "Theo, yes. Everyone clap for yours truly." Chapter 20. Day. Amara's POV. "Where'd you get that?" I growled as soon as I saw the weapon in his hand. "Wasn't that difficult? You shouldn't trust old people with such important things such as these. It's not that difficult to take it from their frail hands," he chirped. With all of my strength, I stood up and tried to grab 𝐿𝐸, who was standing just outside the bars of the cell, but failed and grabbed onto the same bars for support. "What did you do to her? What did you do to my mother?" I cried out. "Nothing much. She'll survive," he replied, uninterested. Listen, 𝐸𝐸, my words were cut off with 𝐸𝐸 putting his hands over mine and crushing them against the bars, causing me to hiss in pain. He leaned closer. "No, you listen to me, because I won't be repeating what I am going to say now. I don't know if you've tried yet, but when you do, you will realize that your mind link won't be working here. Why? Magic. I will come inside and remove the mind link for 5 minutes. In those 5 minutes, I want you to tell Elias to come here. Ask him to come here alone. I'll be listening to your whole conversation, so don't try to pull something off. Trust me when I say this, I will hurt you." Registering his words, I replied, "How will he know where to come, even if I ask him to?" "It's Elias, he'll figure it out. We just need him to come here while we carry out the plans for Doomsday." He finally removed his hands and motioned the guard to unlock the door. "You might want to move. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to get hit by the door, which we'll be happy to provide." Choosing to keep my mouth shut, I slowly backed off as the guard opened the door. 𝐿𝐸 walked in, closing the door behind him. "𝐿𝐸, why are you doing this? Is this what you want? You know what this boss of yours wants, right? To terminate werewolves. You want to betray your own species," I asked him while looking at him in the eye. This wasn't the 𝐿𝐸 I knew. "Shut the FK up, Amara. I don't need a life lesson right now. Just do what I asked you to. Make it easier for the both of us. Why don't you?" he replied. "You aren't 𝐿𝐸. I know that you aren't," I whispered to myself, but loud enough for him to hear. His expression changed for a second. His eyes were clouded in confusion, but soon returned to normal. "You know nothing about me. You are just a fool who fell for my tricks. I don't have any more time to waste with your bullshit. I'll be removing the mind link now." He closed his eyes and concentrated for a few seconds. "Now?" I knew that it was going to drain me. My wolf was already trying to heal my bruises and cuts. If I did this, this world's future would be at stake. If I didn't do it, Elias would still look for me, but he might be able to figure something out. But if Elias knew my location, I had to do it. I gathered all my power into one place to send this information to him. I had to do this. FKU 𝐿𝐸. Go eat some shit. As soon as I mind-linked that, 𝐿𝐸 grabbed me by my hair and pulled it backwards and landed a kick on my stomach, causing me to spit out blood. He then punched me in the face, which immediately threw me into darkness. 𝐿𝐸's POV. Why can't she ever f-king listen to some orders? I walked out of the cell while ruffling my hair. As I began to ascend the stairs, my head started aching immensely, causing me to take support from the wall. This had been happening for a while now, but I couldn't remember since when. The pain increased until it was impossible for me to stand. I crouched down with my hands over my head. "𝐿𝐸, what are you doing?" a voice inside my head questioned. "Who are you?" I mumbled coherently to myself. "You forget me?" "Dumbass. It's me, Ezekiel," the voice replied. "And stop calling me the voice. I am going crazy." "You definitely are. You just heard Amara. I will kill you before Elias does. Gain your f-king senses back before you do something unforgivable." "𝐿𝐸, are you okay?" Emily descended down the stairs and helped me up by grabbing my arm. I pushed the voice back and pulled my arm away from her. "Do you need something?" "She wants to see you," she frowned. "Do you want to play with me once you're done?" Just because Amara killed your last master doesn't mean that you immediately set out to find a new one. At least give him some more time. I walked past her to go and see what the boss needed this time. I opened the doors to the dimly lit room. Our boss preferred it to be dark around her most of the time, since her real form wasn't quite pleasant to be seen. "You wanted to see me?" I asked while closing the door and approaching her. I did. She turned towards me. "How is Amara doing? Did she ask Elias to come here?" "No, but we will make her," I replied. Of course she didn't. She took a few steps towards her chair, which was probably a throne, and sat down. I should have just killed Elias as soon as he met her. After all, he was to become mortal when he met her. "So were you?" I didn't reply and waited for her to continue. "I don't know what I was thinking while cursing you all. Giving you an immortal life and then giving him the opportunity to meet a mate and live happily while I mourned the death of my husband and my child? No, no, no. I can't let that happen. I have gone through so much to reach to this point. We'll destroy Elias and all the werewolves in existence, she almost screamed the last sentence. Snapping her fingers, she made the light above her glow, revealing herself in front of me. She looked more than 100 years old, which she probably was. She snapped her fingers once again to grab my attention. I usually get lost in other thoughts when she repeats the same things over. Tell the guards that I will be coming to the dungeons soon. I think it's time to reveal myself to my beloved daughter. Theo, damn, it's yo mama. Amara, I wonder who all saw that coming. Chapter 21. 100 years ago. Third person's POV. It was the time of war. Death and destruction was everywhere. The ignorant humans had just learnt that they weren't the only superior race on this planet. Were they superior at all? As soon as they felt threat to their throne, they attacked. Yes, humans were the first to attack, which caused death of hundreds of innocent werewolves. Some were experimented on, while the others were tortured. The werewolves knew what they could do to the humans and had decided to stand back until the lives of their kind was threatened. Their primal instinct to protect their families and pack led to the largest, longest, and the most destructive war that would be recorded in the histories of both of the species. Mothers lost their children, sisters lost their brothers, wives lost their husbands, and children lost their fathers. The prolonged war finally came to an end. The four heroes of war seemed like a curse to the mankind. They had killed plenty and without mercy. Every human who came in their way was slaughtered. But blaming it on them would be hypocritical. After all, it was the humans who started the war with an inevitable end. It was the turn of the werewolves to reign over the earth. 𝐿𝐴𝐵 had everything that she could have hoped for. A husband, a son, and a beautiful future. At a young age, she had mastered the art of witchcraft, a skill that was usually frowned upon. But with her beautiful smile and a few magical tricks, she had won many hearts. Then came the war. All the human men were recruited in the army. Both 𝐿𝐴𝐵's husband and son had to leave her, but not before promising her that they'll be back very soon. They did keep their promise. They did return, but in coffins. Saying that she was devastated would be an understatement. Their images kept flashing in her mind. She thought that she was going insane. Little did she know that she indeed was. She blamed the werewolves, she blamed them all. Especially those whose songs were being sung everywhere she went. She had heard their name. Elias, Theodore, Romanique, and Damien. Oh, how much she wished to curse them all. And indeed she would. She was powerful, and she knew it. She didn't even need them to be near her to curse them. But she wanted them to know. She wanted them to remember who she was until their last breath. Her city was being named after his wolf lion, and for that they were coming to the city. It would be the perfect time. She would crash into the ball that was being organized that night and curse them in front of every one of those damned werewolves. She would show them that they weren't as powerful as they thought they would be. She did exactly that. When she cursed them, they didn't even try to resist. She couldn't see the anguish in their eyes, their apologetic faces, their hanging heads, for her eyes were covered with fury. Years passed. She couldn't help but think that the curse that she had given them was more of a gift. Who wouldn't want to be immortal? Their immortality would remain until Elias found his mate. Of course, Theodore, Romanique, and Damien would never find one, but they would have the gift of immortality until then. You have to sacrifice a few things to get something, don't you? And after Elias found her mate, then what? They would all get a happy ending without even an ounce of guilt towards the amount of deaths they had caused. She couldn't let that happen. She sacrificed hundreds of werewolves to limit her aging process and hid her deteriorating self behind her magic. She then looked for the werewolf who would possess the seed of Elias's mate. With her power, she found him soon enough. He still hadn't found her mate, and she saw it as a perfect chance. She compelled him into thinking that he was her mate. When his real mate confronted him, she made him kill her and continued with the attempts of having his child. Mastering that trick took her a few failures, but she did succeed. She cast her magic off the man who later on killed himself, realizing that he had murdered his own mate. After the baby was born, she left it in the woods, knowing all too well that the two werewolves who weren't able to have a child would take her in. She wondered if they ever knew who took away that ability from them. While Amara grew up, she gathered her army, collecting humans from all parts of the world who were ready to throw off the werewolves. With a little motivation and magic, they all easily gave in. But of course she needed some werewolves by her side as well. After all, who would know them better than their own kind? So she decided to cast her magic over a few of them. Emily didn't even require magic. She was already very ready to betray her own kind and wanted Elias in return, as me promised she could have Elias. But she left out the part that she would get her, but as a corpse. Then there are 𝐊𝐢. It had been very hard for her to cast her spell on him. She did it the day that had gone out when their house had been burnt. His wolf had resisted a lot and the spell had almost drained her. But she was successful. All her plans were working out well, and if she was lucky, Elias would be dead within a week, while the humans and werewolves would be against each other in another war. A war which humans would win. And after all of that, she would be able to die in peace. She knew that she wouldn't be welcomed in heaven, but hoped to see her husband and son with open arms when she entered the spirit realm. 𝐊𝐢, and that's all we have for today's trip to the past. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time. Amara, who are you even talking to? 𝐊𝐢, they know. They all know. Chapter 22. Elias's POV. When Amara didn't meet us back at the decided spot, we knew something had happened. I had a really bad feeling about it. The feeling turned out to be true when we headed to the direction where she had gone and learnt that a young female had been kidnapped by a gang. I could make out that their leader was 𝐊𝐢 when one of the men gave us his description. It had been 3 days since her disappearance and Lion was very agitated. He wanted us to save her as soon as possible, knowing that she was in grave danger. I wanted to as well, but Amara and I had talked about this situation before. When 𝐊𝐢 had told her about his leader not wanting her quite yet, we knew they would come for her sooner or later. She had made me promise that I would not look for her until I made sure that the revolt was handled, and that is what I planned to do. Amara's mother knew someone back in Kronos who could help her retrieve the materials required for her to perform a magic to locate where Amara was, and so she had left instantly. Stopping a revolt sounded absurd, and I didn't have any idea of how to do it. I sent Rome to Petra in order to alert the adults about the possibility of the war and to ask them to prepare armies only to fight those who were causing the revolts in order to decrease the possible victim. I thought their old minds were wise enough that we couldn't afford another war between the two species. Every city had speakers in their roads so that elders could announce the important news. It was usually announced from Ephesus since it was a holy city. We knew where the transmission tower was, and so Damien and I headed for it. We were aware that we would be allowed in there, and if we weren't, we would find our way in it ourselves. On reaching there, the wolves who were responsible for securing the area tried to stop us. We didn't have time for their bullshit, so we knocked all of them out and emptied the transmission tower, only letting the operator stay in there with us. Maybe not letting, forcing as soon as he was done setting everything up, he let me know that it was time for me to speak in the microphone. Initially, I was dumbfounded. I had no idea how to start and what to say. But then I started. I know all of you must be wondering why this announcement is being made. Before coming to that, I would like to introduce myself. I am Elias 𝐊𝐢. To some of you, I might be a hero, while to some of you, I might be the person you despise the most. I am not here to justify myself as either of those. Right now, I am here to do something that I wasn't able to do 100 years ago. I am here to prevent a war. A war that has been brewing since a few decades ago. It isn't a war between humans and werewolves. It is a war between those who want to create a barrier between the two species and those who want peace. I know that right now there isn't exactly peace between our species, but if this war does happen, it won't ever be possible. To all my fellow werewolves, we are also humans in many ways. To all my fellow humans, humans also have an animalistic side to them. We aren't all so different. The difference between us has been created by our own people, and I would like to request you all to look beyond it. I would like to request you to not participate in this revolt. Things won't get better for either of us in this way. If the rebels do come in your city, I would like to request both humans and werewolves to join hands because our goal is all the same. We all want to protect our loved ones. I want to protect my loved one. That's all that I have to say. It is all up to you now. I nodded to the operator and he turned off the microphone. I knew that only the speech wouldn't prevent the war. I had to protect the people as well. I had to wait for 2 more days before the revolt in Ephesus would take place. I just wished to tell Amara to hold on just a little more. I would come for her soon. Amara's POV. I just lied there looking at the ceiling. I don't know how many hours it had been since my encounter with Theo, as I had fallen unconscious after that. I hoped that Elias was keeping his promise and doing his best to prevent the revolt. I knew he was. I trusted him. Then my mind wandered off to Theo. What made Theo change so suddenly? Elias had known him for more than 100 years. One can't just betray 100 years of trust. There had to be something wrong with him. Someone was definitely manipulating him. It had to be magic. How else could someone get into his mind? My thoughts were interrupted when I saw the guard suddenly standing up and saluting whoever was coming towards my cell. I tensed up when he started to approach the cell door and fumbled with his keys to open the lock. A person wearing a cloak entered the cell, their face completely covered with the hood. Theo entered the cell along with another guard. They both held me up from either of my arms so that I was sitting on my knees while facing the person. The person spoke, their voice seemingly disguised. "It is a pleasure to finally meet you." I couldn't help but let out a chuckle, causing Theo and the guard to look down at me with surprise. "You don't have to pretend with me." The person in the hood took a step back in surprise. I have known for a long time I didn't let my smirk falter as the person took their hood down. "It's nice to finally see the real you, mother." "It really is, isn't it? Now it's time for a real mother-daughter talk," she spoke, smirking right back at me. "Theo, does everyone know everything except for me? WTF, I even part of this story?" I offended. "Author, calm down, it's not a big deal. Didn't you have something important to say?" "Theo, Rome and Damien, oh yes, Happy New Year, our beloved mates." Chapter 23. How are you doing today? I hope your day went well. Amara's POV. Yes, what do you want to talk about? When I got my first period, or do you want to give me some sex ed? I scowled at her. How about we discuss on my plan to kill your mate? I am sure you have some suggestions, she spat back. I do have a suggestion. It's called fuck off, I replied, struggling to be free from Theo and the guard's hold so that I could let my hands and her face meet. She chuckled, looking at me. You truly look pitiful, daughter. But honestly, I don't have time to talk bull's tea with you. She walked towards me and grabbed my hair, pulling it back so that I met her eyes. I only brought you in this world for a reason, and you will help me accomplish it. Is it to make you regret birthing me? Because trust me, I'll accomplish it. I looked at her furiously. Look, BH, I'll ask you questions and you'll answer. Got it. She tightened her hold on my hair and brought her other hand near my neck. She traced Elias's mark and whispered some words. As soon as she did that, the mark and its surroundings started burning, causing me to groan in pain. I knew Elias could feel it as well. She was trying to bait him. Don't fall for it, I thought, hoping that he could somehow hear my pleading. I had to distract her somehow. I am going to let it hurt for as long as you're here, then I'll relieve you of it, because a dead person can't probably feel pain. Can they, Amara? She brought her hand up to my chin. Now all you have to do is answer me honestly. If you don't, I know how to make it hurt even more. My precious daughter, she said, ending her sentence with words laced with pure sarcasm. I nodded. Ma. How did you know that it was me behind it? She questioned. Well, the magic spells you were teaching me weren't approved by a friend. She let me know that those were meant to drain my spiritual energy, and it led me to wonder, why would my own mother, who appears to love me so much, want to drain me off of my energy? It isn't what mothers usually do, you know. Oh wait, of course you don't, I replied, earning an increase in the pain over my mark, causing me to shut my eyes to prevent the tears from coming out. I know exactly what mothers do. I could see that she was shaking with anger. Does Elias know that it is me? Why don't you ask him? My voice was becoming raspy and tired. Love, I won't have time to be asking him questions. I would rather enjoy slowly killing him, she answered in a sing-song manner. I'll be honest here, Amara. I have nothing against you. I don't want innocent people like yourself to struggle. Just join me. I won't let any harm come to you. And when all of this is over, you can join me on my trip to the afterlife. We can all be a family. I know Robert and Jake would accept you. They would be thankful to you for avenging them. You think your loved ones would be happy seeing you become the monster you have become. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I don't think so. Have you any idea how many innocent lives you've already taken? The revolts that you started have killed and destroyed lives of several families. You think your family would be grateful to you after seeing that. And about the part of being a family, I want to have nothing to do with you. My parents are dead. You killed them, I growled. I knew my words had angered her greatly, so much for trying to distract her Amara. I thought to myself. She released her hold on me and stepped back, her eyes completely cold and devoid of all emotions except for one, hatred. She murmured a few words. I felt as if someone was cutting into different parts of my body. When I looked down at my stomach, where it hurt the most, I could see blood gushing out of me. It all hurt so badly that I couldn't even scream. Don't worry, I won't kill you yet. I'll heal you and do it all over again, she spoke before exiting the cell. I had no strength to reply. I don't know how long I lay there, feeling the pain and the metallic smell of my blood around me. I knew that my wolf couldn't heal me here. Heck, I couldn't even feel her in my mind. I started coughing out blood. Smelling the blood was one thing, tasting it was another. It made me want to puke. I tried to ask the guards for some water, but they let out a laugh after hearing me. I'll kill you first, I thought to myself as they laughed at my misery. Just then someone came. I could tell because the guards tensed up. You guys can go catch a break, the tone of the voice letting them know that he was certainly not requesting them. 𝐊𝐤. The guards bowed to him and left. On hearing them leave, he appeared in front of my cell door, but he was facing the other way, towards the cell opposite to me. You are still alive, he commented, the words obviously being directed to me. Yeah, no thanks to you, I barely managed to reply. My eyes had started blurring. Definitely no thanks to me. How are you holding up, he asked, putting his hands in his pocket. I've been better. But may I ask, why are I stopped speaking because of the sudden increase in the pain? Why are you so interested in your enemy's well-being? I don't think your boss will be happy. My enemy is the same as you, Amara, he replied, causing my eyes to widen a little in surprise. Forgive this idiot's inability to overpower magic. He then turned. Even with the blurriness in my eyes, I couldn't miss the color of his eyes. Black. 𝐻𝐿𝐴, I whispered. 𝐊𝐤, I'm not an idiot. Amara, I don't know, I kinda agree with 𝐻𝐿𝐴. 𝐊𝐤, you're just jealous because I'm hotter than you. Chapter 24. Quickly updates before Wattpad can start with the upgrade. On the day when Amara had just started learning magic from her mother. Amara's POV. I'll be honest, I was happy to meet my biological mother. After the death of my parents, even though I had Elias, Rome, Damien, and 𝐊𝐤, I felt like I didn't have any family that I knew or was related to in this world. At least not one that I had known of. And when she told me that she would teach me how to control and use my magic, oh, how ecstatic I was. After practice for the day was over and my mother had gone to go shop for a few necessities, I had decided to give 𝐿𝐴 a call, just to update her on the situation. I wasn't expecting to learn what I did from the call at all, and I was certainly very shocked to. Hey 𝐿𝐴, have you been well, I asked, a smile appearing on my face. Yes, love, I've been well. How about you? How are things going over there, she replied. I'm good. We managed to calm down the revolt before any major damage could occur. I also found my mother. That's wonderful, Amara, she exclaimed. It is. She has also started teaching me some magic, I informed her. Oh, really? What was the first spell that you learned, she questioned. She said to start with the basic, so the first one she taught me was 𝐻𝐿𝐴, as I replied. She taught you that word for freeze, she asked. Yes, she did. I wondered what was wrong with it. Why? It's just that in magic, there are intensities in words. Different words can have the same meaning but different intensities. More the intensity, more of your spiritual power will be drained. For a word as simple as freeze, I can't help but wonder why she would teach you that word. A simple pagoma would suffice, she explained. Huh, I thought to myself. At first I assumed that since my mother seemed to be a powerful witch, she must have forgotten that I'm an amateur and would probably correct herself next time. But after a few classes and calls with 𝐿𝐴, I learned that this woman was determined to drain me off of my spiritual power. I could only wonder why my own mother wanted to do that. Not. The night before the group left for Ephesus. Amara's POV. I hadn't told Elias about my discoveries. I couldn't. Not yet. I was sitting in my room, lost in my thoughts, when I heard someone knock on the door. "And why have you honored me with the pleasure of your company, Lord Elias?" I teased. I knew it was time for our walk. "My lady," he bowed. "I was wondering if you'd like to take a walk with me. This late at night." I faked my gasp. "I don't think I can go anywhere with you at this time. What would the people think?" Laughing, he took my hand in his and led us out of the house. We walked to the clearing of the forest where I used to practice my magic. Elias sat down in the grass next to the lake. I looked at him and raised my eyebrow. He patted the spot next to him. Smiling, I sat down as well, resting the weight of my back on my arms and looking up at the starry sky. Elias gazed at me and then up at the sky. "Look, that group of stars is called Cassiopeia," he pointed with his hand. I laughed. "I think you mean that one." I reached out for his arm and guided it towards the left. Oh, he looked slightly embarrassed, which made me laugh even more. Grabbing my hand, which was holding his arm, he pulled me towards him, halting my laughter. "There are many stars shining brightly in the sky tonight. Can you tell which one is shining the most brightly for me, my love?" His eyes looking into mine, my reflection on them as clear as that on the water of the lake. The northern star," I managed to reply somehow. He chuckled. "I think you know which one I was talking about." He brought my hand to his lips, laying a kiss on my fingers, all while looking into my eyes. I gulped, causing his gaze to flutter from my eyes to my neck and then up to my lips. The way his gaze was piercing through me, I couldn't help but part my lips, trying to breathe in through my mouth because clearly my nose wasn't letting in any oxygen. He leaned in, my hand still in his, while the other one coming up to hold the side of my face. It felt like forever until his lips were brushing against mine. His lips reached out for mine. This kiss was different from the last time. Last time it was out of desperation, my and his own desperation, for us to know that we hadn't lost each other. It had been fierce and aggressive. This time it was slow, delicate, but not at all devoid of emotions. In fact, for me, this kiss had more emotions than the last one. The way his thumb gently caressed my cheek, the way his other hand was wrapped around mine tightly as we deepened the kiss. I could feel his emotions through it and could only hope that I had succeeded in delivering at least half of them. When he pulled out of the kiss, I was out of breath. Even though I was sitting down, my legs had become weak. My whole body was on fire. Just a touch and a kiss from him had that effect on me. I looked up at him. He smiled down at me and then kissed my forehead, but not before whispering, "Truly beautiful." After a walk like that, I thought I would get the best sleep of my life. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Why? It was because he appeared in my dream. Who? You might wonder. The one and only capable of doing so, probably not. The moon god. "Oh, hello there, Amara. I almost didn't see you," he spoke before sipping some tea. He was sitting on a sofa in a patio at God knows where. And get it? God knows where? And he's God? Okay, bye. "Moon god, I have returned for an appearance. You all may bow down to me." Theo crickets. Chapter 25. Continuation of Amara's dream. Amara's POV. "What are you doing here?" I asked while walking towards the god. "Well, you see, last time when we were having a talk, we got interrupted. So I thought to myself, where can I meet Amara without anyone eavesdropping? In her dreams, duh," he said. "Genius, I know." So I said, obviously asking him to continue. So what, he replied, tilting his head. "Why are you here?" I was honestly wondering who assigned him as a god. "Ah, yes, I noticed that you've realized who is behind all of this mess." He motioned for me to sit beside him. "And I was assigned as a god because of my promising personality and abilities." I had my doubts, but you just confirmed them, I replied while ignoring his last comment. "When you said that we had a traitor amongst us, I thought that you were talking about Theo." He threw his head back and laughed. No, Theo wouldn't do something like that, at least not in right mind. But you have that figured out as well, haven't you?" Indeed, I snapped my head towards him, causing him to raise an eyebrow and look at me with curiosity. "Why have you only been giving us information that we know? It's 𝐿𝐻.UH.𝐷𝐞𝐻. How do I put it? Useless, you know. He smiled. I told you, I don't meddle with fate. He laid back on the couch and looked up at the sky. Amara, I declare you as my friend. And why have you bestowed such an honor upon me? I asked, half laughing, and copied his actions. My imagination wasn't that bad. I mean, the sky looked pretty real to me. He turned his head towards me. As a friend, you can ask me for a favor. I knew that he was implying something here, just not what. What kind of favor could I ask him for? Can I ask you for information? I questioned. Nope, he said, looking back into the sky. Favor, my ass, I replied. He chuckled. Think better. Can I ask you to keep something for me? Protected and safe. But you have to deliver it to me when the time comes, I asked, still looking at the sky, wondering if this also somehow meant meddling with fate. Of course you can, he replied, a full smile appearing his face. Never mind, he was always smiling. But I could tell that I had asked for just what he wanted me to, which made me smile as well. Back to the present. Elias's POV. It was the day of the revolt, and things looked awfully quiet. Probably the calm before the storm, as people say. Damien, some other werewolves and humans who had willingly volunteered, and I were patrolling the streets. People hadn't dared to come out of their houses, and it was something I was glad for. It would be easier for us to fight the revolters without the people outside. I patrolling a street when somebody pulled my shirt, causing me to turn. It was a little girl who was offering me a cookie. Mommy said that you were here to protect us from the bad guys. I thought you would need some energy to fight them, she said shyly, pushing her hands forward. I smiled and ruffled her hair with one of my hands while taking the cookie from the other. Taking a bite, I replied to her. Thank you, love. After eating a delicious cookie as this, I don't think the enemies stand a chance against us. She giggled while I frowned. It wasn't her giggle that made me frown. I could smell humans and werewolves making their way down the street. Could you do me a favor? I asked her, and she nodded. Run back into your house and ask your mom to lock the doors and windows. Okay, she obeyed, running back into her house as fast as she could. By the time she was in, I could see them all. It seemed as if there were around 50 here. I could only wonder how many were there in the whole city. The other 2 wolves with me had already shifted. Letting Lion take over, I shifted into a black wolf. My size and scars were enough to tell that I wasn't to be messed enough. Baring my teeth towards them, I took a step back through my hind legs, ready to attack. Observing their weapons, I could tell that they hadn't only brought knives, swords, and arrows with them. They had guns this time. This would be a challenge. Just then I felt a hand pet the fur on my back. Don't worry about the guns, Kiara's voice spoke. I'll protect you all from them. Giving her a wolf's smile, I turned back towards the revolters and ran towards them, and so did they. The first one, I pushed with my head, and he immediately fell down. I turned to grab the other by his neck and pulled out his life force from him. My other 2 partners had joined me by then. Not all the revolters were fighting us. Some were busy taking people out of their houses forcefully. I could see one pulling a boy away from his parents. They kept yelling that they weren't werewolves. If only they knew that these people didn't give 2 shits about that. Before the guy could drive the knife through the kid's chest, I pulled his head off from him. I didn't have time to stay for the parents' thank yous and turned back to save other lives. At one point I was completely surrounded. There were 10 of them around me. One made his way towards me, causing me to leap at him and decapitate his body. The others took this opportunity, and one of them drove a knife through my right foreleg, which made me howl in pain. The other to my left did the same, causing the strength in the 2 limbs to give up, but I knew I couldn't. Not before saving Amara. While the 2 kept their knives driven through my legs, one of them moved to stab me in the chest, but before he could, he was stabbed himself and stood behind him, the father of the boy who I had saved. He nodded at me, and I immediately moved to grab the guy at my left and lifted him to hit the guy at my right. I could feel my wounds being healed even faster than a normal wolf's, and I knew I had to thank Kiara for that. Now that I was able to stand up properly and observe my surroundings, I could tell that more humans and werewolves had joined the fight. Not to fight each other, but to fight those who wanted to disrupt the peace. It only made me even more determined to win. Just as more people had joined to help us, more had joined from the enemy side as well. but a sniff in the air was enough to tell me that they had no chance. Rome had been successful. The reinforcements were here. We had won this fight. But the war was yet to begun. 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐬, those last lines. I can literally feel the author smiling while writing them. Author, while smirking, I bet you can. Chapter 26. Whoop. Chapter dedicated to 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐬. So only a few chapters of Lion are left. We are coming to an end soon, kids. Fun fact, I sometimes read Lion in my free time to laugh and cringe at my own jokes. Amara's POV. I know that you're badly injured, Amara, but now is not the time to lose consciousness, Ezekiel said while stepping into the cell. Coughing, I replied, just get me out of here and my wolf and magic will heal 𝐀𝐥𝐸. I suspected so. Your magic is only blocked inside the cell. I recommend you to start healing yourself as soon as we step out. Also, contacting Elias now would be a good idea. He lifted me up, causing me to groan in pain and him to wince slightly. Sorry. It's all right. As soon as he stepped out, I worked on healing myself. I wasn't able to heal myself completely, but I concentrated on the injuries which looked more serious. I don't think you can just carry the prisoner out of this dungeons. He looked down at me, giving me a sad smile. I am afraid that I can't. I also believe that as soon as your mother realizes that her hold on us has gotten weak, she'll not hesitate to correct her mistake. I am not sure how for long I will be in my right mind. That's just great. I sighed to myself. What do you think I should do? Go back inside the cell. Who's to say that they won't injure me again, and I don't think you'll be able to get out of her spell every time. No, you can't go back inside. I motioned for him to set me down so I could check if I was able to stand on my own yet. I don't think you'll be able to get far away from here either, though. I suggest you camp somewhere here in the grounds. Do not tell me she might somehow get it out of my head. He supported me before I could face plant on the ground. How far could I go in this condition anyway? It is better to take shelter under the lion's nose, though. Where could I do that was the question. We stayed silent for around 15 minutes. I was concentrating on healing and thinking where I could hide while he was probably wondering when she was going to tighten her hold on him. When I was finally able to walk and run a little, still limping, I decided it was time for us to part. Turning to him, I put my hands on his cheek. I'll make sure to get you and Theo back soon. I promise. Smiling, he put his hand over mine. I'll be holding on to that promise. Just then, his smiling started flickering, and I could see the conflict of emotions in his mind. The witch had started tightening her hold onto him. I knew that it wouldn't take her a lot of time, so I did what I thought was the best for both of us. Somnum, I whispered, caressing his face once and causing him to fall down immediately. This should get him to sleep for a while. The guards would be back soon. Hiding behind one of the pillars, I waited for them. After successfully ambushing them, I exchanged my clothes with the one which I felt would fit me better. I knew that just wearing their clothes wouldn't hide me, so before running out of the door, I masked my scent, making me smell like one of them. I hadn't forgotten that not only humans were a part of this scheme. On opening the door, I was introduced to a never-ending hall. It went both ways, and I could only wonder which path to choose. From one of the end, I could see a group of people coming my way. 2 girls and 3 boys. I will be honest, I was nervous as FK. I didn't know if my magic had even worked. What are you doing here, soldier? One of the boys asked me, and all of them came to a halt in front of me. I could see that all of them were regarding me. Most of them looked at me like I was normal except for one girl. She narrowed her eyes, taking my appearance in. I am new here, sir. I can't find my way back to the shelter for guards, I replied, trying to sound as civil as I could. I will take you there, the girl who looked like she would break my facade any time spoke up, her eyes looking at me coldly. Her voice also sounded as chilly as the look in her eyes. I tried my best not to shiver in the snowstorm created by her. On taking a well-hidden sniff, I could tell that she was human. I wouldn't want to bother you. I assumed that you would have better jobs to do. I smiled at her. No, I don't, she said, turning and motioning for me to follow. I looked at the others who were clearly as surprised as me, but I knew not to make her wait too much. I couldn't raise any suspicions, though I felt that the girl had already seen through me. We walked in complete silence. It felt like it had been hours when we finally arrived at the barracks. Which room is yours? She turned to face me. I was about to give an excuse, but she cut me off. You haven't been assigned with one yet. Yes, I haven't been assigned with one yet, I replied, nodding my head. The room behind you should do it. I don't think you have a roommate right now, but don't expect it to last for long, she motioned towards the door behind me. Thank you, I was cut off again by sirens that had gone off. I had a feeling I knew why, but decided to ask anyway. What is happening? A prisoner has escaped, she replied, her eyes boring into me. We should go then. We should go catch her, I insisted. I never mentioned that it was a her, she raised an eyebrow. And besides, I don't think we need to go anywhere. Why, I asked, unconsciously leaning against the door behind me. Because I believe that I am already looking at her. Theo, damn who that. Amara, I wonder who. Chapter 27. Dedicated to 𝐊𝐢𝐬. Quick question, do you think there should be a smut chapter in Lion? If so, till how far would you like it to go? Or do you think Lion is better without it? Amara's POV. OFK. I thought to myself. Don't you have anything to say? She stalked closer to me. I mean, you could try to catch me, I smiled at her. I don't think it would be that difficult. Seeing that you're using most of the magic to heal yourself, she stopped in front of me. I was ready to attack. Get inside the room. To say that I was confused was an understatement. It is the safest place here for now. No one will look for you there, she replied. You are going to help someone who is most definitely going to kill your boss. It was my turn to raise an eyebrow. I don't work under her. She spoke as if she was stating a fact. I scoffed. Well, you are here working with her when you know that she is taking innocent lives. Don't blame me for misunderstanding. I have a tip for you. Don't annoy someone who is trying to help you. You don't know me at all, and you won't. Just get inside before I decide to throw you in front of her. She turned the knob of the door and shoved me in. What's with all the enemies helping me today? I could hear footsteps out of the door. Stasia, have you seen the girl anywhere? She has escaped, someone spoke. No, was all she said. Well, could you help us look for her? What do you think I've been doing? I've searched this side of the barracks. She isn't here, she replied. Are you sure? Would you like to check yourself? My Majesty, I could practically picture her poker face while she spoke. No, of course not. Let us not waste time then. Come on, everyone. Let's go search the grounds. The footsteps retreated. I heard a knock on the door, which was followed by her voice. Farewell, and then silence. I spent around an hour in healing my wounds. By then they were almost completely healed. I sighed, leaning against the bed. I could finally contact them now. Nervousness bubbled in the pit of my stomach. I would finally hear his voice after so long. What should I say? Greetings. It is I. The response was immediate. Amara. Even though he was so far away, I felt as if I could feel his breath in my ear as he spoke. Are you okay, love? His voice was filled with concern. I smiled. I'm all right, Elias. Did you manage to control the revolt? I promised, didn't I? The council has sent reinforcements to all cities, and the citizens also seem to share the same views as us. I am not wasting time now. I am coming to get you. I could hear the determination in his voice. Do you know where you are? Theo had told me that you'd be able to find me just by the mind link. Instead of a reply, I got a growl. Elias, Theo isn't at fault. You know that he wouldn't do that on purpose either. He has been compelled. I knew that the idiot didn't have enough mind of his own to plan something like that. He replied, causing me to laugh. Amara, your mother is missing. She had gone back to Kronos but never came back. I don't mean to offend you, but I think she is with the enemy. She isn't with the enemy, Elias. She is the enemy. This time I heard 3 distinct growls. I knew you two were listening in. Why exactly is your mother after you? Damien asked the question that I knew was in all their minds. She is as old as you guys, if not more. She is the witch who cursed you all. She wants to kill us. I replied. She wanted Elias to come here sooner, so to bait him she hurt you. Elias completed for me. I felt it all. I wanted to come to you, but I couldn't. I'm so sorry for bringing you into this, Amara. It is all my fault. I can't even protect you properly. Shut up. It's not anyone's fault. I would have killed you if you had come here and broken your promise. I mentally slapped his arm, which I'm sure he didn't know had happened. So what's the plan? Rome spoke up this time. Track me and come here. Don't just barge in like you own the place though. Get some people if you can with you. Ask Kiara to hide your scent and try to kill as less as possible. I don't know how many people have willingly joined and how many have been compelled like 𝐿𝐲. Her magic will die with her. They won't be compelled anymore after her death. I finished. Amara, are you sure you want to kill your mother? I mean, she isn't my mother, Damien. Far from it, actually. No mother would treat their child like she has treated me and the people I love and care about. She certainly isn't doing anyone a favor by living and taking lives. I gritted. I think you should be able to enter easily. Most of them are looking for me right now. But even if we intend to kill her, how will we? The weapon is with her, or have you deciphered where she has kept it? Rome asked. I've deciphered it all right. We don't have to worry about it. It's not with her. I replied. But we all saw you giving the wooden stake to your mother. Did you really think that a simple wooden stake would be a weapon to kill such a big enemy? How is that interesting, Rome? I teased. Then where is it, my moon? Elias inquired. Honestly, I have no idea. All I know is that it is somewhere safe and protected. He will deliver it to us when it is required. Who is he? They all spoke at the same time. A friend, I replied with a smile. 𝐿𝐲, an early update for the lovely people. Chapter 28. Amara's POV. Found you. Elias spoke. Mountains of Ephesus, not that far from the city. It will take us 2 hours max. Good location for a hideout. People are inhibited from going there since they're holy grounds and with your mother's powers, unnoticeable. These people really need to step up their security. Revolters living right in their holy grounds, pathetic. Rome growled. They couldn't have been totally unnoticeable. Would have to buy their supplies from somewhere. A little bit of magic and fertile land can do a lot of wonders, Rome, I replied. Anyway, I think I'm healed for the most part. I'll head out. You'll need some distraction. Amara, you said they're already distracted as they're looking for you. No need to go out until we reach. We don't know how many enemies we're against. Elias responded. Around 300 on the grounds. How do you know? Damien questioned. I took a sniff. I answered. We are on our way. We'll keep you updated. Stay where you are, Amara, Elias warned. And if I don't? I'll make sure that next time you'll obey even without me telling you, he growled. Never thought that you'd be a sadist. I chuckled. Love, when we are done with this, I'll make sure you know exactly what I can be, he promised. I choked on air. Well, bye, Amara. We'll see you soon. Damien was the one to finally speak up after an awkward silence. While they were making their way to the mountains, I decided that I should retrieve the weapon from a friend, but I had no idea how to. Oh dear moon god, I started. I summon you. Nothing. I pray to you, moon god. Give me the weapon. Nothing. Grace me with your presence, my god. Nothing. Hey, you piece of. I heard you the first time, Amara. A voice came from behind me, startling me and causing me to jump. I turned to see the god lying on the bed with his head lazily resting on one of his arms. Could you try not to give me a heart attack? Every time we meet, I kept a hand over my chest, patting it to calm my heart. You are the one who called me. You should be prepared to see me. It's entirely your fault. His lips twitched upwards. Well, where is it? I asked. Where's what, my dear friend? I'm afraid I can't read your mind. A full smile had now appeared on his face. I damn know well that you can read my mind. Where is the weapon? Ah, hate that. Why? It's safe with me like I promised, of course, he replied. I think it's time you returned it. I need it to end. A certain someone. I crossed my hands. As you say, friend, he held his hand out and closed his eyes. As soon as he opened them back, a dagger appeared on his hand. With the dagger in his hand, he gestured me to come over to him. I obliged and walked over to him, standing beside where he was lying. Out of nowhere, his other arm reached out and grabbed my hand, pulling me onto the bed. He was on top of me at once, my eyes widened at his actions. One of his arm holding both of my hands over my head while his legs were on my thighs, preventing me from kicking his balls. I struggled in his hold but stopped as soon as he brought the knife to my heart. He leaned in, his lips inches away from my ears. "Make sure to aim for the heart," he breathed, and I immediately nodded. With that, he was gone, leaving the dagger beside me on the bed. It didn't look like any other, at least not the ones I had seen before in my life. The blade was made of jade, making me wonder how it would pierce through a human. The hilt had a sign of the moon, which was enough to tell that the moon god had been involved in its making. "We are here," a voice spoke in my head once I was gone inspecting the weapon. It was time. I was immediately out of the room and headed for his scent. I knew she would be out as well. After all, she wanted him dead, but she wouldn't let anyone else do it for her. As soon as I opened the door that led out of the barracks, I was welcomed by a knife. Grabbing his hand, I twisted it so that it was at his back and took his knife from him. With the handle of the knife, I hit him on his head hard, causing him to fall down immediately. I would fight the other physically, but I didn't have the time. I had to reach to Elias, so whoever came my way fell unconscious to the ground by a sudden power. I could finally see Elias, Damien, and Rome, but not Kiara. They had turned into their wolves, as had several other enemies and aliases. Elias was baring his teeth at the enemies, challenging them to make a move at him, which some of the unfortunate ones accepted, and were soon lying on the ground, completely unconscious. Bullets were floating in the air, quite literally, which was enough to tell me that Kiara was around. I regarded the surroundings for a second. The ground was covered with mountains on 3 sides, and on the 4th side was a forest. It looked pretty deep. With that, I decided to make my way to Elias, but felt a presence behind me. Before I could turn, he caught my arms, pulling me back against his chest. I tried to use my magic but couldn't, not on him. She was protecting him. "Theo," I growled without looking back. "I don't have time for this." Neither does she. As soon as he spoke, everyone fell down to the ground. Everyone except for Elias, Theo, and I. It was as if they were restrained by an invisible force. Her laughter made its way before her. I could hear the grass move as she walked, but couldn't see her as Theo's grip on me made it impossible for me to turn. She gave me one glance before continuing to walk towards Elias. "How have you been?" She snapped her fingers as she stopped foot away from Elias, causing Elias to turn back into his human and fall on the ground onto his knees. I could see him struggling under her spell. "I've been well," she replied when she heard no response from him. "So tell me, Elias, how would you prefer to die?" "Oh wait," she clasped her hands together like a 5-year-old. "Before you decide how you would like to die, tell me, how should I kill Amara?" To this, Elias responded with a growl and tried to lunge forward but was pulled back immediately, wincing in pain. She fake gasped in surprise. "I'm trying to help you here. You're going to watch her die. You should at least get to decide how she should die." Nothing painless, though. He didn't respond. "Fine, I'll decide it myself." "What a gentleman you are, letting the lady decide. I'll make sure to make your death a little less painful." With that, she put her hands over Elias's head. As soon as her hand made contact with his body, he let out a groan in agony, making me struggle in Theo's hold even more. "But you said you'd give him to me. You said you wouldn't kill him." I rolled my eyes at the voice. My mother turned at her voice, her face scrunching in disgust. Without giving her a second glance, she murmured some words which were followed by a scream and splatter of blood. "Now, does anyone else want to disturb me?" She addressed everyone, but her eyes were looking right at me. "Stay here," she told Elias as if he could move, and made her way towards Theo and I. As she was walking to us, I felt Theo's grip on my hand weaken. He whispered so lightly that only I could hear him. "Get her, Amara. You can use your magic on her. Theo won't bother you. Kiara. Keep holding her hands," Theo, the evil witch, ordered as she grabbed her neck with one of her hands, but Theo did just the opposite of that, and let my hands go. His hands still stayed in the same position, though, to avoid any suspicion. "Want to kill me, my precious daughter? But how will you when I possess the weapon?" She mocked me as the wooden stake appeared in her other hand. I tried my best to not laugh when I looked at it. I shall kill you with just the weapon that you intended to kill me with. She brought the stake to my stomach. Not yet, Amara, I said to myself. Leaning in, she whispered into my ears. Before I kill you, I should let you know my name so you remember it for eternity, shouldn't I? Not yet. 𝐊𝐿𝐺𝐻. Now. My movements were too fast for her to comprehend. I grabbed the stake from her, throwing it far away. I landed a punch on her face, causing her to stumble back. Before she could murmur another spell or flick her fingers, I grabbed the dagger that was attached to my belt on the back and grabbed her throat, keeping her at place. I tried to drive the knife through her heart, but it was blocked. She was using a wall. Be careful, Amara. Let me warn you before you try to kill me. Your magic will die with me, 𝐊𝐿𝐺𝐻 spat. Do you think I give a shit, T? Kiara, I shouted to wherever the witch was hiding. Hold her magic with me. I knew she had heard me because 𝐊𝐿𝐺𝐻 now seemed a lot weaker than before, but not weak enough. I closed my eyes and concentrated my power and mixed it with Kiara's. When I opened them back, I could see the wall in front of me, withering away. Amara, don't do this, she pleaded in my arms. Don't kill your mother. I need to avenge them before I die, please. Revenge won't get you anywhere, 𝐊𝐿𝐺𝐻. Look around us. You plan to avenge the dead by killing more people, I spoke as I drove the knife through her heart. She struggled a little but soon fell limp, and her body fell on mine. I could feel the spiritual energy leave my body. It wasn't painful, but it wasn't pleasant either. Gently, I laid the dead witch on the ground. I could tell that everyone was out of their spell. Some seemed dazed while others had a defeated look on their face. I looked over at Elias and saw Rome and Damien helping him up. I was going to help them, but before I could, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around to find Theo looking down at me with a miserable and apologetic face. Guess who finally decided to come around? I smiled, putting my hands on my hips. Amara, I don't even know what to say. I can't do anything to take what I did back, but all I wanted to tell you was that. His voice was cut off, and his eyes widened at the sound of something piercing through the air from behind me. Theo whirled me around, exchanging our positions. Theo, I stuttered as I looked at blood dripping down from his chest. The arrow had pierced right through his heart. Giving me a sad smile, he said, I'm sorry, and then fell down on the ground, his face falling in the direction from where the arrow had been fired, his heartbeat slowing down until it finally faded away completely. Unable to comprehend, I fell down on my knees right beside him, my hand shaking as I touched his wound. Blood covered my hand. The never-ending tears came soon after. Elias, Rome, and Damien were immediately beside us, looking down at their lost friend. With anger seeping into their veins, they made their way into the forest to track the shooter. I caressed his cheek gently. His lifeless eyes were still focused on the forest. Theo, come back. I promise I'll laugh at your stupid jokes. We have so many episodes of so many series to catch up with as well, and I'll call Elias as Elias along with you. I won't let him smack you for that. Please just come back, Theo. But there was no response. Sobbing, I pleaded. At least tell me how. How could I have ended it differently? Chapter 29. Amara's POV. It's okay to cry, you know. I spoke as I walked towards Elias, who was sitting on the couch in a black suit, his hands covering his face. I wrapped my arms around Elias's head, to which he in turn wrapped his hands around my waist, his head resting on my stomach. His grip on me became tighter with each tear that fell from his eyes. I kissed the top of his head and rested my chin on top of it. I couldn't help but cry with him. He wasn't supposed to, his voice cracked. He wasn't supposed to die like that. I know, I replied softly, caressing his hair. If only he hadn't covered me. If only I still had my magic powers. If only I had somehow known about the arrow. There were infinite IFS, but it was all too late. I don't mean it like you're thinking, Amara. Don't blame yourself. I will be eternally grateful to him for saving you, but I don't know if I'll ever get to thank him. I don't know if I'll ever get to thank him for everything he has done for me. He sniffled. I can't help but remember my last words to him before he died. They weren't pleasant, Amara. They weren't the words you used to send off a friend. We couldn't even find his killer. What kind of friend am I? Elias, please. You're doing what you asked me not to. Don't blame yourself either. He wouldn't want that I put my palms of his face and brought it up to face me, his teary eyes looking into my equally teary ones. You know that Theo wouldn't want that. There was a knock on the door, causing both of us to turn. It's time came Damien's voice. I turned back at Elias. He nodded at me and I moved back so that he could stand up. He walked to the door to open it, but he didn't walk out right away, not before taking my hand in his. The sky was covered with dark clouds, making the atmosphere no better than how it already was. He was lying on his casket, wearing a dark blue suit, looking as handsome as he always looked, but the glow and warmth of his skin was replaced by complete coldness. He looked at so much peace, but at the same time as if he was going to wake up at any second, but we all knew that he wouldn't. All of us were standing around him. Elias, Rome, Damien, Chiara and I, along with some other members of the council who had known him. Everyone spoke of their memories of him, laughing at his silliness, crying because we would never get to see it again. As he was lowered into the ground, rain fell from the sky, making it hard to tell whether the drops of water that fell from our face were tears or the rain. But we did know one thing, that it wasn't just us who were weeping. The heavens were weeping with us. 8 months later. I can't say that the world had become as good as it could be, but it had definitely become a better place for all the species that lived in it. The changes that took place weren't drastic, as it would lead to confusion and chaos, but laws had been amended. Werewolves weren't the rulers anymore, though they still lived in packs with their alphas and other positions. It was necessary for them, it was how they had always lived. The alphas were more like governors now. The system had adopted democracy. The government bodies contained humans, werewolves, and all the hidden species that had come forward. People had learned to live together. Those who despised the other had come to love. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better than before. A lot more peaceful. Rome and Damien had come in terms with the fact that they wouldn't have mates a long time ago. According to them, they had found companionship within each other. It was true. They didn't need a mate bond to tell them to love each other, and neither did Elias and I. Not anymore. Every Sunday, all 4 of us would pack the breakfast and visit Theo's grave. We would talk, laugh, cry, and eat with him. We would share our experience of the week, tell him secrets that we couldn't tell each other. That Sunday was no different. We were all sitting on the mat that lay on the ground, facing his grace. Elias was next to me, his arm wrapped around my shoulder, while Damien was feeding Rome fruits with a fork as he was too occupied in reading. It's been a long time. A familiar voice made us all turn back to look at him. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "That's not how you greet a friend, Amara." The god clicked his tongue. I had met the god the day after we had buried Theo. I had begged him for a favor to bring him back. Deep down I knew it wasn't possible. Yet I couldn't help but have some hope. He was a god after all. He outright denied. I expected it, but couldn't help but feel disappointed. It wasn't his fault either, but now that I saw him again, those feelings came back. I tried to slap them away, but I couldn't. "My dear Amara, I have told you before. I can't bring your friend back. I do not interfere with what fate has in mind. Even I am not in position to do that." He smiled. His smile was what made it worse. How could he smile when we were clearly feeling loss? "I know," I replied. "I'm sorry. I know I'm being unreasonable. It's not your fault. You can't blame me for questioning your sudden arrival, though. You don't really visit unless you have something to say." "Of course. My friend knows me well." His smile widened. "Being the ideal friend I am here to give you some advice." "And what might that be?" Elias was the one to speak this time. "𝐿𝐴𝐿, what was it again?" He brought one of his hands to his chin and tapped it, clearly pretending to be in deep thought. "Are you really going to play with us like that?" I sighed. All right. He straightened his posture and his face suddenly became grim, but there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. "Help him. He has been through a lot." He was speaking in riddles again. Before we could ask who, he just vanished into thin air, leaving us with our thoughts. These thoughts didn't last too long as our heads snapped towards the grave, all of us standing up, alert, when we heard pounding from the ground, not from above it, but from below. I know for a fact that our eyes widened and our hearts skipped a beat in sync when we saw a hand emerge from under the ground. Chapter 30. Amara's POV. To say that we were taken aback would be an understatement. After all, it's not every day that you see your supposedly dead best friend rise from his grave and stand in front of you in the very blue suit that you buried him in. The fact that his eyes had a fire in them didn't help either. Just not figuratively, literally as well. The eyeballs were fully black with flames of hellish fire dwelling in them, his face still as expressionless as it was when he laid in his coffin. But there were changes in his features. There was a certain roughness but at the same time sharpness in his looks. He looked more primal than human. Theo, there was a certain cautiousness when Elias called out his name. Theo's eyes narrowed ever so slightly as he angled his face to get a better look at Elias. "Elias, is that you?" His voice came out as a whisper as expression turned into that of confusion. He then looked at Rome, Damien, and then me. He continued to look around at the world as if he could not believe that he was back. Well, who would? Is that what he meant? If it was not for our heightened hearing, we wouldn't have caught those words. They left his mouth as if they were spoken to only reach his ears. The flames inside his eyes were burning even brighter now, as if displaying his anger and confusion. Instinctively, we all stepped back. It didn't go unnoticed by him. "You're scared of me?" he asked, looking directly at me, his voice dripping with sorrow. Elias was the first one to walk up to him. He smacked Theo's head. Never in 100 years, he then proceeded to laugh at his own joke. Walking to him, I spoke. "Scared of you?" I scoffed. "No offense, Theo, but I could easily beat you up." When I was finally in front of him, I gave him a toothy grin, to which he replied with the curving of his lips into a small smile. We had practically surrounded Theo by the time Rome and Damien were at his side. "So what's up with your eyes?" Rome was the one to ask the question we all had in our minds. "What's up with my eyes?" Theo repeated after him, raising one of his eyebrows. "There's fire in your eyes," Damien stated, which seemed to confuse Theo even further. I went to fetch my bag and pulled out a small mirror, which I then handed to him. He angled it so that he could have a clear view of his eyes. When he saw them, his hands shook slightly. I couldn't tell whether it was because of anger or fear. His mouth curved up into a snarl as he looked at his reflection, barring his canines. They seemed to have elongated more than one could imagine. So this was his parting gift. The anger in his voice was evident. Who did this to you, Theo?" I questioned. "The devil." It was difficult to believe what Theo had enlightened us with that day. Even though I was his friend, it would be ridiculous to think that if heaven or hell existed, which I was now certain of that it did, that Theo would be the one to go to heaven. Hell? I don't think that I'd be allowed there either. And that was what had exactly happened. Theo had been through hell, again literally. The word I had used to describe the flames in his eyes, hellish, had been accurate. They were the flames of hell. So it was confirmed that hell had flames, but they weren't exactly using it to punish the sinners by frying them for eternity. For punishment, they made the sinners go through the lives of each of their victims. The sinners would forget who they were and fully immerse into those lives, reliving through whatever their victims had been through. Their happiness, sorrow, regret, and the pain that they had inflicted upon them, and the results of their actions. That is what happened for an eternity. The devil, or whatever you may call him, was a master manipulator of minds. He was the one who bore the responsibility to deliver the punishments. He would, every once in a while, appear in the visions of the sinners. This would make the sinners go crazy, as they would get reminded of what was going to happen. They would get reminded that they were not really living, that the body they thought was theirs certainly wasn't. According to Theo, the devil had taken a certain liking, if you must say, towards him. It was because Theo would tell that he was in a state of illusion. He hadn't gone insane like all of the others. That made the devil notice him more. It made him interested in playing mind games with Theo. Theo never told us what they were about. Before coming back to the world of the living, Theo had met him. The devil had told him that they would meet again and parted with him, but not before informing him that he had a gift for him as a reminder of the promise. We all were now sure of what it was. Theo hadn't been the same. He would still smile and joke around with us a little, but he had become distant. He sometimes wouldn't talk for several days and stayed locked up in his room. He wouldn't tolerate strangers at all. Even when the ladies hit on him, he would just let out a low warning growl. I couldn't see him like that. I knew that if he was in my place, he would rush into my room and smack the hell out of my head. I did barge into his room during one of his hibernations, but didn't smack his head. I admit I was a little intimidated of him. He was sitting at the window, staring at the distant view. Even on my dramatic entrance, he didn't whip his head to look at me. I could almost hear the conflict in your mind to enter the room. Amara, he spoke as he traced a drop of water that was dripping down the window due to the rain outside. What's wrong? Theo, I almost slapped myself for asking him that. The man's been through hell and you're asking him what's wrong. Let me rephrase it, No, I really can't rephrase it. He chuckled. It's not the living through hell part that is eating me alive. Then what is, I asked, hoping to be able to somehow find a solution to what the problem. Technically I died, came his reply. It should have created some loophole. A loophole, I repeated. A loophole in what? In the nature, in magic. The curse ended when I died. Do you mean to say? The fire in his eyes brightened as he spoke. I might have a mate out there. Epilogue. Surprised, elated, hopeful. These are a few words that can be described to explain the emotions swirling through the group when Amara informed the others about the good news. Amara had always wanted to travel and now she would. The wolves had promised Theo that they would go around the world looking for his mate, just like he had accompanied Elias in his search for Amara. That night, they all huddled into a hug to bind their promise. Their journey would begin in the heat of summer and end ... Well, that was something no one could guess. But all of that was months away. For now, they were all sitting on the top of the mountain, the place Elias and Amara frequently visited to watch the sunset, the only difference being that this time they weren't alone. Damien sat beside Rome, his head laying on top of his shoulder. Theo watched the flames of the sun drown into the sky, which only seemed to ignite the flames of his eyes even more. Amara sat on Elias's lap, her head resting on his chest and his arms wrapped around her waist, holding her close. You could say that it was one of the happy moments in their lives. Happy but ignorant. Ignorant of what lay ahead of them. Ignorant of the fact that their lives were just a few months away from a whirlpool that could cause an everlasting disaster. After all, it wasn't the end yet.